here. What do you do for work here?
I host at the Beer Deli, which is 532 West Street.
Shout out to the beer belly. Is that what is that? Jeremiah, do you know what this is? Yeah, like Brody Stevens, for example.
You know me from the podcast you did. Get in the car, trust me. When do you work next?
Weekend.
Weekend this week. How many times a week do you go up usually?
1 or 2.
And how much time are you come from?
I don't know. I hope 10, 15, something like that.
That's the longest you've done is 10 hours.
Yes.
What's your favorite joke?
Well, I really like this joke. It says that because I'm from Russia, certain things I realize people don't. Like the word milk and the word film comprise of the same letters. So I wonder how many dyslexic young men went to the film school just for it through the computer.
You're thinking in the right direction. You know? I think it's always like, I hate being this older dude who's like potatoes. It's just so, I probably, it's just so annoying. Like, when I was a child, but I do think the difference is just like following that thread. If you can write a joke like that again, I really think you just keep in that mindset. You just keep following that thread and expand. Don't just stop at one thing. It's never a noun. They're jokes. They're verbs. That makes sense. Like your whole act should always be changing.
I have a follow-up for that joke. I said it wrong. I meant how many dyslexic young men went to film school just to become crappy filmmakers.
Man, you're like the Pussy Riot comedy. You did, they're pretty terrible. It's impressive.
Not in advance.
I mean, a year in and you don't have a mic stand, but I get it. You're from Seattle. It's not the best place to start.
Everybody's terrible after a year, right? They just said terrible.
I was murdering a year in.
I will just keep doing it. A year's very new, but have fun. It's up there. That's one thing I did. Auditioning new little listeners. Keep doing that kind of joke. I mean, keep thinking that way. I think you can
How do you say her name?
What is she?
Renati?
Renata.
Renata.
I say, my name is Renata with 2 A's.
Renata Orishing, everybody. She's not on Twitter. Oh, wow, look at that. Renata. There she goes. Taking her cup of oil. Fuck yeah, everybody. Keep the fun train moving along here. We're going to get together with Jesse Rothenberg. Here he comes. A new name. Wow, this is not Jesse Rothenberg. This is Brody's Pizza. It's been a blood sugar attack. Very much. Oh my God. Wow, right? However, the pizza guy does look exactly like Jesse Rothenberg. Very impressive. Yeah. Wow, I thought you just gave bad comedy tips, Brody. That's pretty impressive. That show got a bigger laugh, by the way. That's an in the moment show. It would have to be a show where the people are getting tips.
Hold on.
Okay.
$5. Go. What's a good tip for $23?
Wow!
Talk to me that way.
Hell
pizza. That was a good tip. Should I do more than 5?
6. 6. How many hangovers? How many hangovers were you in?
All right, here's 5. Even 6.
Right.
And I gave you 5 in here. That's 11.
Is 11 good?
All right, get this guy 90%. Yes.
So again, $11, it's not bad. You have any jokes you want to do, man? See you later. Joe's Pizza, everybody. Joe's Pizza. Experience the other band next Canadian. Jesse Rothenberg, everyone. Here he is.
All right.
Alrighty then. I'm here to take a stand, guys. Take a stand against the #1 issue facing men today. That's right, the fact that we can't be respected in shorts. It was a hot one out there today, and you know what? I didn't like it, so I went and changed the shorts afterward. I mean, girls short, they get paid 30% less, but they get sundresses and skirts. It's easy, it's breezy, it's beautiful. So, I don't know if you agree with me. If you're a guy, I think you should join in, take a stand with me. I mean, some of you might prefer pants, but you know, some of you prefer looking buttholes too. So it's up to you. If you're with me, these are my knees. Let them breathe. These are my knees. Let them breathe. These are my knees. Let them breathe. I'm full of shit. I've improved in 2 days.
Yeah. Fuck yeah. I love that. All about the short. Yeah. Fuck yeah. It's like really beautiful poetry.
I like to just campaign slogan. You're then roasted in an oven with a fire. Spread out the azar to separate the chaff from the grain. These are my knees, let them breathe.
Yeah.
Rothberg.
Usually when a line doesn't work for a comedian, they don't repeat it. But I've done it. That's what I like. That's true comedy.
The colonel then mixes the flour with oil. The minced bone and leaves. Wait on that. He then does 2 pounds raisins, 3 showers. Then does all the grain was published now ready for consumption.
איפה בשעת, איפה שכל בשלושו, שלוש קיבוץ בשלושו. כל ראש השבס, לא משנה לכל, כמובן. ויש לנו רבנו בשבת ישראל וכל בכל ישראל נוספים. אני יכול להגיד לך חומים, שהם אומרים שגם
That's fuck you confidence is what that is.
למה?
He doesn't even care if you guys laugh or not. It takes a lot of guys a lot of years to get to that point. And
Like when you wrote that, what were you thinking about in terms of it being actually funny? Like not just being like, you said, I'm going to write about shorts. Guys can't
I feel like maybe he was doing like really long jokes at one point. Somebody's like, dude, you should be doing like short jokes. And he's like,
See, Tony, that's good. Tony, that's good spot.
Do you want to know the worst about it? It was just really warm one weekend in February.
It's not a joke, though. It doesn't matter. Like the story behind it doesn't matter. I'm already bored, but board shorts. I don't know. What did you do before comedy?
College.
Okay. How old are you?
23.
All right.
what'd you go to college for?
Economics.
What's that working out for you?
I got a job from it.
Yeah.
I'm an analyst.
Make me impressed by the way you're talking about this.
I just, do we have to talk about this? Jesse.
By the way, I need one slice.
Brody, I'm not letting you talk with your mouth full.
Let's find out. Where are you from?
Philadelphia.
Philadelphia, great town. I was going to be there. Philadelphia too. I played Van Maris as a Hanks Love Child. And then how long you been here in LA?
About 9 months.
Now, did you go to New York? Did you think about going to New York, or did you?
No, this is. I got a job here, so I came here.
What you did for your analyst job? And then you wore the shorts on stage all the time. Is that your shtick?
No,
How much time did you spend writing this set piece?
yeah. Yeah, I thought of it.
Yeah, you thought it was kind of over there, right?
No, it was at an open mic.
I don't know, did you go over in your head? Probably not really, right? Yeah, you can't do comedy like that.
I've done it a few times.
I know, but that's like,
If I were you, I do the whole Tony Hawk thing. I play that. You gotta like, right?
just right, bro. You're not writing. You know, you just gotta do Tony Hawk.
Yeah, Tony Hawk, throw a cowboy hat on and just kill it.
That's where you start. That's where you start. You just sure people know that he's an athlete, audience form of positive energy. I believe in him. So that's what I'm known as. You could be like a skater guy. You're gonna dress like that.
One of your mottos was let my knees breathe, but you're wearing a knee brace on one of the knees. So literally, even though you're wearing shorts,
There's a little bit of hole there.
what happened to your knee? Doing economics.
הבאות התחלנו בשעה בזמן לעשות עד החושך כדי להגיע לאימונים. לא צריך לעשות יותר מזה. הנה, וואי, זה איש פתאום.
Maybe seal stuff or whatever.
Snowboarding.
It's a lot.
You said that's a lot.
I mean, you're a private dancer.
What are you so afraid to tell us about this economics job?
Oh, it's just a very boring job, and like whenever I meet people or go on dates or something, they want to ask me about it. It's just.
What do you want to talk about? What's more interesting than that? Where are you from?
Philadelphia.
What did you do for Brody, you're unbelievable tonight. I love it. It's always a risk booking Brody's theater. You never know which Brody you're going to get and how much of which Brody, and it's always fun. First guest to ever fucking order a pizza out of 109 episodes. To 109 hour-and-a-half long shows for pizza to come here at the same time as a meeting. It's pretty epic. Jesse, you ever delivered pizzas before?
Pizza's ripping, by the way.
Brody, you're doing crowd warm-up right now.
That's what we need right now. It's energy.
You really need to find your voice. It sounded like you were doing like a bit. It sounded like a story. It doesn't sound like you talking to me. Like if you wanted to tell me about shorts, you wouldn't tell me like that. Yeah. So find the meat that's in the joke. If there is a joke in there, and then just try to do it out of your own voice. It's just like something I have that I do knows a minute.
No, but dude, there's no effort. You can't like be nice to yourself on the stage because there's no effort. There's no joke. You just talk about, hey guys, girls wear sundresses, we wear shorts. And, like, you gotta be a little like Anushka, whatever her name was. She actually like at least was trying to figure out. She had like MILF and whatever. Right? It's new. It's maybe not the funniest thing, but there's an effort. I can see at least some effort there. Like you can't tell me that you thought for more than one fucking minute about what you were going to do tonight. You talked about shorts. There was no joke, bro. You were acting like you were an activist for shorts.
I stopped at home to change into shorts, so I thought it did a little bit better.
I know that. It's not like a rocket scientist. You just got up and wore shorts. Well, I tried to invest in shorts because it's a sport show. I wore to Chelsea, never wore shorts. When I invest in short show, never wore shorts.
Yeah, Brody,
I'm just talking about shorts. So let's just get a thread, energy, push, hands out the pocket. Let's go. Sometimes.
Brody, you do this thing where
One minute, if my instincts are right, I'm not going to go against my instincts. I'm from LA, 80s to light die, born, raised in show business. I have a natural knack to understand comedic timing and energy. Let's push it along.
I'm just gonna keep agreeing with you. Jesse Rothenberg, I love it. I can roll with that. I can roll with Brody ending it. Another name up here. Bianca
Mene
Cristobal.
aprendiendo a hacer cultural, no saben hacer valor. No saben de todo.
Hi guys. I'm actually from the Czech Republic. I know I don't look like a typical Eastern European girl, and I don't know what to tell you. My mom is white, blonde hair, blue eyes. I've never met my father, but I'm guessing he's not. I'm a Latina though. I remind her of the best summer she's ever had. She was in Africa about 25 years ago. She had sex with me. She was blind. It was sexy and hot and sweaty, and I know that because I was there. This was the last time I saw my father. I was like, Daddy, don't make me inside of this crazy white woman. He's like, I'm just going to get some cigarette. That was it. So I lived here for a while in America, and I had a blast, but I'm going to be 25 now, so I'm ready to settle down, ready to get married. I don't have like a biological clock, but I do have an expiring visa. So.
Good job! Bravo! There it is! Fucking that's what you call Eastern European discipline! That's good. That's effort. That's goddamn effort in another language. Comes this country at 25 and makes everybody laugh. That's a big fucking accomplishment.
Absolutely.
Congratulations. It's been a good move. I love fucking effort. Bravo.
How long have you been in America? 10 years. Wow. That's amazing. And I feel like you speak better English than everybody.
She does.
She's
She's a better person.
including Eric Carter, who's from the South. It's really interesting. Bianca, it's amazing. How long have you been saying?
Bravo.
You're right. I'll tell you right. You're in luck. How long? So we can go home. I like to have you on the Friday show. I like to have you on the Friday show. That's what.
Spread the universe rewards effort.
Bianca just booked a slot. That's how it works.
Like to have you on my podcast.
Wow, there you go.
I think you did great. Like you're nice, positive, leader, confident. I guess what you have to do is nice. Because I think you just like get the confidence, you step to the front of the stage, took charge, and your body language really good. That's good.
You have intelligence and poise. Where you like that word, poise?
You're in LA.
And I just looked at another shit movie. Oh, this is they're ninth graders.
So you've been in LA for 5 years. Did you come straight for film school? What's that?
It's not like it's next to German and Austria. It's really like that, except we speak Czech.
What's in the Czech?
Beautiful.
I think a lot of us spared the third divorce.
Oh, yeah, because my kids are like, we love it.
We didn't fight at all.
That's it.
Because I tried to take you on. Oh, interesting. I love this. Gary, wait for it. Fucking rejected. I like that. Good to know. You want to play our song? Wait for it. That's for the 4 people who know who that is in the room. Good job, Brody. Bianca, what's your type? Pat Reagan is a young, rising, amazing
Yeah.
talent.
Who's the most attractive man in Hollywood?
כמה שאריות להיות, אנחנו עושים את הלחם. אז אנחנו נראה ארבע שיטות. על, למטה,
Wow, interesting.
נעשה לגמרי, או שתשימי את החורף לצד, ושמים את הלחם בין הרגליים. ואז יש לך רגל מעל ורגל מתחת. בסדר.
Oh, wow, now I know why she didn't go out with you. She just rejected going out with you again, by the way. If you can sell Bianca why she should go out with you in 15 seconds. Fuck yeah, it's all fine.
Don't worry about it. Enjoy going back to Europe.
Wow. Interesting. You're evil. Is this boyfriend gonna save you? You think he's gonna? How much longer do you have on the visa? Few months. So you have a few months to go fucking crazy and find somebody that will in 2 months. See, Brian Redman is what's right. Are you ticklish? Oh god, Jesus Christ. I can't believe this has turned into the regular question. Jeremiah, try to tickle her. Jeremiah, don't do it. So Bianca, this boyfriend of yours, how do we get him to propose and save him? You don't want to go back to the
Yeah, sure. Like, yeah, let's convince him. I don't know.
Is he in the audience right now? Dude, if you had 2 months left in this country, you should spend every single second with you. You should be taken care of.
He should absolutely marry you. He should totally marry you. He needs
This is advice for guys that haven't had sex with you yet. I can't believe that fucking guy's not with you every single fucking minute. I would burn this whole place down for you. You were my girlfriend on night Tuesday, just look at you day. Bottom line. He's fucking loser. The guy's a fucking loser. You need a guy who really appreciates you. Like the fine wine that you are. I'd sip you. I'd sip you all day. I've been that guy too, so I understand. But I really would. 10 years.
I just don't think he's ever going to get anything better. I think he needs to check himself before he wrecks himself. Maybe it's a dumb audience tonight. Bianca, what else? Anything you want to say? You want to propose to him via live podcast right now? You might be punching a few screens. What is he doing?
זה הכתיבה של הלחם, כן. איפה כנראה לך שהלחם הפונים, וגם הכתיבה הנקי, יש גם ספרניים. בוא נראה אם אפשר, הנה, בוא נזכיר לזה, אז תראה, אתה רואה את הקרן שם, זה הלחם.
The ones that do get that should be clapping. The ones that don't, I still hate you. Bianca, what do you think about this audience?
אז מה יש שם? שים לב, זה סתם. יש רגל למעלה.
Give it up for yourself.
יש רגל למעלה.
It's been a pleasure seeing you the first time. I hope that you come back again soon. We'll see you Friday at the Airhouse.
Leave the boyfriend at home.
You know what, let's move to, let's get one more up here. Mark Stevens.
How you guys doing? I'm doing good. I just quit my job. Yeah. This needs work. What's up? Yeah, I don't get a job. It's sort of smells like kids. All the kids get like before cats at home to them. They got really good lettuce. Ask what the hell was wrong with us. We were sleeping, died, eating. God bless my mother. She never took a word.
לא אלא המילה על, פשוט, נוסף על המערכת לבוא לדעת. תשים על, זה לא על, זה מיד אומר את זה. אז אומר,
oh my God, I'm so sorry about that. I'm gonna sit Mark down and have a talk with him.
not be allowed to watch television this weekend. You ain't gonna have fucking dyslexia on Monday. I'm telling you right now.
אני לא רואה
Thank you, Roger.
על האורן, האורן מצד ימין, עם הכיוונים, ואתה רואה את זה מיד, כאילו מאחורי זה, וזה יכול להיות על האורן בסופו. אבל אם על בסופו, לא, קצת אגב, בואי נראה מה עושים תנו פה, עושים מכל הכיוונים, או מעבד כאילו ברעב, בואי נראה, למה אנחנו עושים על אורן בסופו,
I guess I did. I mean, you don't go up every week. I mean, you started 9 years ago, but then you like took months off, and then you like back and forth. You do it every
וגם רק שאנחנו עושים מילים שאנחנו רוצים להראות, מתחיבה לבנות המיצה. אבל פה אנחנו מסבירים בעל הרוחוי, מה לא רואים, מה לא רואים, עוד פעם, שוב, אנחנו עושים ביחד, מה לא רואים,
Where were the jokes? Like,
what were they even last
did you agree with that, or do you think it was a joke? Just out of curiosity. Well, so you're an Uber driver. All right, listen, I knew you would sign up. I'll tell you what, Mark, right? I thought it was fine. That's why I can tell you're from like Boston or back east. You know, that's you can establish that's how your mom is. You know, I visualize you in school having a problem. That's nice of your mom. Listen, I got it. I mean, I'm not saying you do. I followed along. I get it. I'm not surprised. You're a nice guy. And I can see you never like never lost it. You're a nice guy. Look at this. This is a joke. Go ahead. Go on. This will take that as a win. This is not nice. This is not a nice town. But the joke was, they tell your mother that you're dyslexic. She's going to fix that. Oh my God, I'm sorry about that. It's like, okay, no problem. That's what we actually parents do. She's from Boston. She's from Ray. Yeah, so yeah, exactly. But how often is that? How often would you do that joke? All the time. It's never failed.
Never failed. Where are you performing?
For your mom.
Special Olympics? What the fuck are we talking about?
You gotta start being honest with yourself.
Is it because you slap yourself in the forehead in the middle of it? Who's laughing at this?
I like the slap.
I did not like the slap. Anytime somebody does like personal harm to themselves, that felt like it hurt. And that's, now I'm thinking he just hurt himself. He's crazy. And then you hear the slap and you don't hear the laugh, and it's like, wow, that was hurt.
Yeah. All right. Like I said, I would be comfortable giving you like a dinner gig in Boston or Brooklyn. It's nice comedy. Nobody got hurt. We want to see the smack. Maybe the smack on the head, whatever we call that hack or whatever. But I thought it was fine. You know, what do you mean by you thought it was fun? I thought the story. I understand, but it wasn't funny. I say it was, but it was an introduction to his life. And I know he had a minute, so in a minute you're supposed to do jokes, right? But I'm just being honest to help you. This is not about criticism. I mean, who cares about that? I'm just more interested in helping you. So let's be honest. That's not a joke.
Are you really dyslexic?
Not really. No, I
know. That's how I actually thought they were trying to use it. I'll say that. You were that.
I knew you weren't dyslexic, by the way, until the joke. That's right.
And not many dyslexic people go get writing degrees either. It doesn't work that way. That's like a person.
You see that? He's the detective. He's the
How's
house.
your name? Mark Stevens. You're a medium. What kind of fake name is that? I'll get Mark Stevens.
Mark Stevens is
Stevens, I get it. You guys come from a long family of mental health issues.
Basically, Tony, that's a below the belt shot. I can give you a story. Go ahead. Tell us more.
Right. Thanks, Greg. Give us something you don't want to move it along too quickly.
My grandfather, my father's side, he was on the radio in the 1950s. Really easy case. No, His name was Charles Stevens. But it's a Middle Eastern last name on the radio, also 1950s. Armenia was out of control of the USSR at the time. So a Middle Eastern name during the Red Scare under the communist on the radio. So he dropped his name Chuck Stevens, like the whitest name in the fucking world. So that's what it is. Chuck Stevens was Montreal. He died many years ago.
The guy from the news? No.
But that's kind of what happened. That's why I'm Mark Stevens. That's cool.
Well, that's Mark and Brody, you guys have an amazing energy.
Because I look at the boss and maybe it wasn't joke, but I'd be very comfortable putting a man like a dinner show.
One of these weird
It's like, you gotta get into a time machine and go back to take out the column in Boston. I know exactly what you're talking
Because when I lived in New York, I did shows in Brooklyn. They have those like nice shows about old mothers and stuff they don't know.
You got it. I'm gonna attack you for a brunch. There goes Mark Stevens, everybody. That's it for Mark.
Don't feel bad, Mark.
His sign sweater.
Keep doing it. Be positive. I have mental illness also. I haven't booked anything since I came out. My career.
Mark the Shark 927 is what he is on Twitter. Bianca Cristoval, by the way, is Bianca Cristoval. BIANCRISTOVAOW. No W there. Guys, this is the part of the show where we have our two regulars come up. They do a brand new 60 seconds every week. Their names don't go in the bucket. They just do this. They write a new minute, they perform in a minute. This week's no different. Going up first tonight with a brand new minute. You know her from the Dysentery podcast. The Girls Voting Experience goes one and only Sarah Weinshank.
Kids. Ugh. I don't know if I want to have one. I haven't made up my mind. I'm afraid. I'm afraid of having a daughter that comes out exactly like me. Also, a mom just flew off my wrist. We had to say it. We had to get that out of the way. So anyways, I'm afraid of having a daughter. Because I can't deal with two of myself. Like, I would hate to have some little person that sees the world the way that I do. I'd be sleeping in the middle of the night. My door would just creak open. She'd be standing there. She'd be like, tooth fairies. So you mean to tell me there's some whimsical woman that's coming in my room tonight and taking my body parts? Sounds like we need new locks.
There it is, a minute. About not wanting to have a daughter.
Your baby fever.
How do you feel about having a son? You don't want to have a kid at all.
I don't know. I don't want to be pregnant.
Right. Right. Why?
It's like, it looks like bloated as fuck.
It is true. It is sort of strange that the way that the human body did it was just make it like a gun for a woman.
How old are you right
That's
now?
what they fear the most.
Thank you.
I'm pretty sure Brian wants to give you that daughter that you
I was gonna say, I'm kind of heat. I will admit that, and that's been the elephant in the room. When I was heating packs, and the answer is a lot. But if you're into money and big dicks, whatever, big deal. But some people don't like to laugh and come that much. But so what? But the point is, what I was going to ask you is that you are a very, all bullshit aside, you're a very attractive woman. And I think that you are, and I like your persona, and I like what you do, and I think it's comedic. I wouldn't be afraid, though, to be less ironic and maybe embrace a little bit more of just what you look like. You're sexy. You're good looking. And there's this fucking weird thing in our society where if you're good looking or sexy or have that potential, you're supposed to play it down. Because a lot of women don't want to be known for just that. Which I think is the biggest crock of bullshit in the fucking world. Because I happen to think we live in a very puritanical, sexually repressed time period. You can't talk about one fucking everybody. I walk around wanting to fuck strangers. And if a guy is really honest about that, which I always am, you're that is a creep. I may be, and you put a little creep in me. Sorry to go on this fucking diatribe, but just know that you do that to people, and that's a strength, not a weakness. So I love your persona. I think you you have a lot of potential. I think you're pretty funny. But I think it's no big deal to embrace the fact that you're also a fucking good-looking, sexy woman. I feel like singing a song.
Oh, yeah, wow. I thought for sure that was going to end with Will You Marry Me, but I love it. Brody, anything for Wine Shank?
Great. It's hard to come up with that. Coming up with the material for the week or something. You can always see it a little bit. A million directions.
It's true, and I think you might want to hit it a little more than it. Almost like, what's the deal with that? Like, what's funny is the daughter of being meatiness, and that's what they're getting to. I feel like it took us, like, people that know you will know that, people that know your style, like Filtoni fans and stuff like that, but to make it a little more, make it transcendent, everyone's brand to that, you know. And more than almost like, you know, you when you get what's the deal with various, it's not wanting to.
I mean, and I'm like,
That's funny. That should be part of your joke.
So should the pregnant thing. Okay, there you go, Sarah Wine Shank. Your final comedian of the night with another brand new minute ever since her first time on stage. We're going to get to it. The dropout from Florida University, the one and only Kimberly Conkin, everybody.
thank you. I have a friend who's really wild and she's crazy. She loves to gamble. And by that I mean she fucks a lot of dudes without condoms. She told me the other day that she had sex with 4 guys at the same time. That's a lot of dick, you know? Like I started to think like one person's normal sex. 2 people's like maybe like one fun night out or something, like a crazy night. 3, all your holes are filled. But 4 dudes, there's just like one dude jacking off in the corner, like tweaking a nipple. Like, what's he doing? That's like an overwhelming amount of penis, you know? Like she probably sold like dick for days. I don't know. I couldn't eat meat after that. That's it.
Good punchline. Really, yeah. Good punchline. Nothing wrong with being that guy in the corner.
Yeah,
It's not a bad spot.
even when they don't know you're there.
They don't. Good stuff. Again, it's like you say, so you see the confidence before you do it. She's like, everybody having
Yeah, that's definitely a new minute. I mean, that was great. To think of the four-person joke. I mean, I think there's more there even. You know, like I sort of, while listening to it, there was this giant pizza box between us. It sort of made me think like, you know, 3 people, that's like 1 large pizza. But if there's 4 people, then you're 4 almost there's like things that are with 5 total.
Yeah, you know, we wouldn't expect. Like, you want to surprise us.
You guys see how hard that's killing with the 1 guy that's paying attention to me? Yeah.
4 guys in a volleyball team, you know, whatever.
Right, exactly.
Something like change it up. Like I want to be surprised by like 3 people's a threesome, 4 people is something, and then, you know, when it's 4 guys or 5 people total, it's
Starting line.
starting to run over. But it's something quite funny.
50 instead of 500.
Oh,
Using condoms?
Oh, you asked me, were they using condoms? No.
Okay, that's a good one. 4th guy's a gay guy, and he's like in charge of cleanup.
Oh, God. Why the act out afterwards? No, Brian. Don't do that. It's my birthday. Don't do that.
Yeah. Make it visual, that's my thought.
I love it.
I wanted to be at that scene.
It's a brand new minute, and if I had more time, I'd want to tag it out even more. I think that's so funny. Matt, you got anything?
I just feel like
We really want to close the deal with you. You seem like a very serious
It was
man.
all on one topic. You did it again. Kimberly Conkin is Italian. She goes. Well, we did it again, everybody. Episode 109 of Kill Tony. Our artist, we have an in-house artist, everybody, named Ryan J. Ebelt, who every week draws a brand new version of the show that he saw here tonight. It's always the panel, and it's always unbelievable. Wow. I love that. This is a very Kill Bill, Kill Tony centric one where I believe Brian Redband is Uma Thurman in this. That's incredible. I'm Bill. My name's Brody Stevens with the gray mustache. Oh yeah, I love that. The great Brian Callen, guys. Anything coming up that you want to promote? 200,000 weekly downloads.
I'll be in San Francisco June 25th, 26th, 27th at the Punchline. Come on by.
Brody Stevens.
Me, Saturday, I'm doing a corporate event in Scottsdale, and then
You got it. Performing at a dinner show on Friday.
then I'm doing Tulsa. Then after that, nothing. I'm on vacation. I saved up, for the summer, so I don't really do much comedy anymore. But
I call it vacation when I don't get booked places. You got it. Pat Reagan is Patty Reagan on Twitter. Anything else coming up? Catch him every Monday here on Kill Tony and at Press Battle every Tuesday. Our sister show, Midnights, here at the Comedy Store.
as always, guys, check out my website, www.daviddick.com.
All the updates. I don't know whether that's real or not, but either way, saying www is the stupidest thing ever. Like either the joke is that it's a real website or it's fake, but just say babydick.com and a little bit less.
I have 3 slices of pizza if you guys want. Anybody wants?
Yeah.
It's they're clean, 3
You
slices.
should have offered them the pizza before the show. They would have liked you more, Brody.
But if they didn't like me, I just like doing my own thing. And that's kind of negative, but that's okay.
He really had to blast off on you guys a few times. One more time. Brody Stevens, Brian Callen, Pat Reagan, Ryan J. Ebelt, Josh Martinic, Brian Redband, Jamie Vernon.
Don't hate on me. I do an hour and 15 in the main room.
You got it.
You think I would do it if I was unhappy yelling the whole time?
Good night, everybody. Good
Welcome, Tony. How you living, big dog? Hope you're having a good day. Hello, how are you? Can you hear me? Oh, you can't hear me.
Here we are again, everybody. Another beautiful Monday evening. It's like a real live show. So we have some new people in the crowd staring at
Yo.
us.
תלוי מה שעולה על האש, ואני אומר לך, סופים, זה המוכנה שמביאים ביחד עם האוהל ולשלום, לפעמים מביאים את זה לבד, אבל בעיקר מביאים את זה ביחד עם השלום ובאוהל, כולו לאישים, אם ככה יוכל יתינו מהגן. ושלא שזה שם המלאכות, החמישה האלה, עולים קצת על המפתח, לא עולים על המפתח, יש הגוש, זה ככה גם, איך הסופים ולהצטרך הגוש, הוא לא... אבל לא ימר קיבו, זה לגמור בו הטיקטק, אבל למד לקחת את המילה בקיבו, ושמעתי את זה לסו איתו, אבל לגמור במיקי בקיבו. יש אי מודע שם, הכל הם מתחילים בקיבו, אז יבא למעט גם את הלסופים, הרבה את זה. ומעריץ הרבי שם לא, אני חושב שתגיעו מאוד מאוד חלות, יש כאלה מגידים חשובים מאוד, אין כאלה חשבון או משהו, מעריץ הרבי שם לא, מה פתאום שאתה החלטת שהמלך הספויס שגוי, ספור, אם אנחנו מדברים על הגוי, לבוא איתנו, כמו, רצו לעבוד עם זה שלום סיפורים, ממש, אז נתחיל שהיה כאילו התאמה, להחלטות, הספויס מנגובו. You may enter the door of the show. Sorry.
Shema Israel, Adonai, Eloheinu, Adonai, Direction flows my hands to let my bed.
אני מודה אפליקציה. אז יש, דיברנו על מקסויטי, מקסויטי כנראה. איזה מעלה. את מה נבחור, רק באימה עכשיו היסטורית, כן? מאכל באימה אחרת. זה לא יאומן, חיה. רגע, אני עכשיו, איפה? עכשיו, בוא נראה בגמור זה נכון או לא. רגע, רבו איתי, זה שלופה בנוף. אני מאוד אהבתי את הסרטון הזה. זה נחמן החדש. ומה לא יצא לרבי שם מנופו, שלא יצא מיכה לסוף. מה פתאום החלטת שמיכה לסוף זה לא לעבור. מה בני שם מנופו, שבו יצא לרבי. אחרי זה באיש שלנו, שמענו שם מנופו, כן, בוא עוד פעם, מה זה שם מנופו, אתה עוד רואה לו. כל אחד כאן בא, לפני עצמו, הוא לא בא, בגלל שהוא בא לו משהו אחר, ובוא יצא מיכה לסוף, הוא בא, כן, שעה יראות. לא יראה, כמו שאני מנוסופים, שנוסוף, בגלל העצמו. ונוסופים זה בא ביחד רואים, ושלומים, אז לא. עכשיו נגמר אבל למי שכולנו מנספוי משיח, בואי בגלל העצמו. לא יכול, שיקרו לחדש. מה זה לא אומר כאן? יש להם הגוש, אבל לפי נקשיבים אין הגוש. כן? אם אתם יודעים במשנה, כתוב לכם חלק מהעצם. אבל לפי נקשיבים. אבל אני אומר כאן, לא נקשיבים לבוא את זה, לא יכולים לדבר. לא ימר דין, גיצור. זה מיוק. בואו אני בואי לגופו, מהגוף. צריך שהחמש מלאכות, אנחנו לחמש, זה פסוק מיוחד, הגישו שאין הם קוראים עליו. וזה הגיש והגישו. ההי המיותר, ומעברי סלרה וחמנוכוי, הוא לא ראיתי את הקהל, את הקהל. למה רשימת מוציא את העמית הספינן? מה הרבה נשאר מנוכוי שיש מהם אישים? סתם בעצם מסתכל את כל הסוגיה במכה אחת, הוא מזכיר עובד. יש 3 כללים, מה הרבה נשאר מנוכוי שיש מהם אישים? קודם כל יש מוצא של מיצו ושמים דברים. ופה כללה הוא יש עוד כלל שזה בא לא בגלל קורבן, זה בא בגלל עצמו, הוא צריך להביא משהו, לא יבוא. ויש להם בגלל עוד כלל שנשאר משהו שירה עם הכוס. אז לכן, הוא בוא ייתן לשתי הלחם ולחם הפונים שהם הם מישהו. הלחם הפונים ואחרי הלחם, הכהנים יכולים ב100%, אין שום דבר שעולה על מזבח, על בכלל אחר. הוא אומר לך, הניסופים שנבוא בגלל הניסופים שבאים ביחד עם השלומים ואוי לו, זה לא בא בעצמו, זה בא ביחד. וגם הוא אומר לעצמי הלם, הוא אומר לעצמי משיח, הוא אומר שלתי, הכל עולה על מזבח, אין לנו נראה לי, הוא אומר את הגמרות האלה, יוכל בכלי, יש פסוק אחד, ועירים הכהן מן המלכות. אז הייתי חושב שהוא לוקח איזה כף גדול, הוא עושה ככה, מין משהו עושה ככה עם המיצות. כמה לא אמר ועירים יוכל בכלי, כמה לא אמר ועירים ממנו קומצות. ממש לפני זה, בפסוק זה, כתוב ועירים ממנו קומצות. ושם זה ביצה. מה, רוב האור להלו, ורוב האור לכאן, ואז זה לא תמיד. אז אנחנו ממשיכים, כי לפני מקודם אמרנו שיש 4 אפשרויות. יש כאלה שספורים, אלה לא, זה כאלה שמחקה בתוך שניים, עוד תגובה, או ערכה. אז עכשיו אנחנו מסתכלים, אין כלום פה ואין כלום לתקות. המישהו קודם היה נכנס למד של 10 דברים עם הגוף ולתגובה. אז עכשיו, מה זה תגובה ולא ערכה? נוקשבת של מתחולות והשומר. רבוי תקדינו מה שלמה עשה היום, יחד קצת יוסי, אז משהו ממש יפה.
Hello.
עשה לי ומצוי. זה משהו. עכשיו אתה מצטט את ה... אנחנו נצטרך להגיד מצווה בלי הגשה. והביטורים, ביטורים לבני זיעה, כמו שזה לא שם, ואימו משם יופי, ואימו משם יופי. השלום אצלנו, לפחות בשויק שלו, הנה, לפחות בשויק יש. גם והחשמל משהו מעניין, כי מצווה, זה הלכם שני פיצייצר, זה הלכם שני שיהודים, גם שני פסוק שיהודים שבועות, שאחד הפסוקים זה גם כן, אפשר כסף הוא עוד בסדר, אז זה כסף הוא עוד, זה שני הלכם, אבל גם שני כבוד. כמו שהיה לנו פעם פעמים, אז הוא מנהל שיהוד הזה, פעם שני העידן שלנו, בואי תראה, מה הוא רואים? לא כאן, זה כל כוח וכוח, עוד זה יגיד שכל ונאמר השלומים עליו באשר הוא. אז גם למעלה וגם למטה, נראה לי כאן הוא עושה את זה, לא? משמע ממש שזה, הוא רוצה צנהם. הוא פועל לו, והכל שזה מהיר. אז התנופה, הוא מתחילה תנופה. אז לכן אני חושב, האם התנופות של רבי, עושה את התנופות, איך הוא עושה את התנופות? אז לא תאמרתי, השאלה היא, מה שרבי התנופות עושים את התנופה ברוב מערב, האם זה בעייתי? תראו בתנופות, הוא הייתי גם את זה. הנקודה היא, וזה כל הסוגיה הזאת, פשוט את המילה מזמור זה אפילו. אז מה שהיה בסוף, במים זה מצוין. זה אפילו בזה. ודאי שבמים זה מצוין, אבל יותר טוב במים. במזרח, כוונה אפילו. מה זה אפילו? אז מה שהיה בסרטון זה מצוין. עוד מעט נדבר. אומר את המשנה, סינופוי, כל כמו ישמח על דופן. אז הקצת הפשוט זה שאם יש לך נמצא, שתיים, גם תנופה וגם הגשה, יש רק שתיים תראה, איזה תנופה יש לו פה, איזה שתיים יש רק תנופה והגשה, תנופה, סולטו ואויבו. אבל בריסקרוב אומר שעכשיו במשהו זה תנופות קודמים להגשות, אפילו יש לך שתי מנחות שונים, זה תנופה, זה הגשה. אז התנופה קודם. הבנתם? זה לא רק שצריכים לחכות בסויטו, ובסויטו עושים תנופה לפני הגשה. גם אם יש לך קורבן שרק עושים הגשה, למשל, אין לך סויטו, הגשה. ויש לך אחת שעושים רק תנופה. מה עושים בתנופה? אולי נראה כאן במשהו, לא? כן, זה לא, זה רק תנופה. אז התנופות קודם. תנופות, כל כמו להגותות. מה? אומר אדם איתן מרחקו, הנה הוא מוקד הגושו ותנופות. המרחק, הנה, כתוב מפורש, המרחק של הסויטו. וזה האומר, שום לעשות הגושו לנגוע במפתח, וגם לעשות את מוי ותומי בימה למוי ירדתי. זה גם הפעול, אני חושב את זה, אני חושב את זה, לא שום את זה. והשיר לא אומר, לא שומעים כלום כל התנצות. יש שלוש דברים, ויש שלוש מצוות. אני חושב את זה טוב, שתיים מכל אחד ואחת. שתיים מתוך השלוש מצוות, מכל אחד ואחת, ושתיים שתיים בוהם. ואינווי, נקרא את זה נראה לכם. זה בשם יופי, זה בשם סקיפות, ועשם מצוות. שמה? אז בואו נראה לך. אני יופי בכולל עשה כזה דבר. זה היה הציב שלו להגביר סביבה. זה יופי המשיך על המתנו. המשיך לכאן. לא מגיע. תנופה, שלוש המצוות זה תנופה ושפות. אז אני אסביר. כל עיגול זה אחד מהמצוות. צמיחה, שצומחים על זה. תנופה שהבימה חיה, ולמטה בתוך תנופה שהוא שפוט. עכשיו, אם אנחנו לוקחים למשל את העשן מיופי, אז יש לו שתי דברים. הוא עושה צמיחה חיים, ותנופה שהוא חי. עכשיו יוצא איזשהו למעלה, הוא לוקח את העיגול הכחול ואת העיגול הירוק. הוא יש לו צמיחה חיים ותנופה אחת. זאת אומרת, יש לו שתיים מתוך כל הדברים. כל דבר יש לו רק שתיים מתוך השלוש. השם ציבור יש לו את העיגול הירוק ואת העיגול האדום. עיגול חי וזה. כל דבר יש לו שלוש דברים ושלוש מצוות. וכל דבר מקבל שתי מצוות בתוך השלוש. זה בגלל יופי, זה בגלל ציבור ואתה מסוים. זה בגלל עכשיו נראה בפנים מהר. תשאיר את זה למעלה על המסך. זה בגלל שם יופי ציבור מצוות חיים ותנופה פשוטים. ואין בהם מצוות חיים. זה בגלל ציבור מצוות חיים ושפוצים. ואין הם סמיכות. השלמים שבאים לרדשו יוצאים סמיכות. עכשיו מסוימות, סמיכות, חי, ואין בזו בסופן. טוב, ואיקו רואה זה לאופן אנחנו מדברים כאן על המצוין, עכשיו מצוין, זה יקרה במצוין לא עושים אצלו ראשון. ואין לי בו ישתתפו, אחר כך מימית אותם פה. ולא הוא מגיע פה. זוכרים שניהם, כמו שראיתם בסרטון, נכון? ראיתם? אבל זוכרים את הסרטון שהוא ימיט את השמן נפל כאילו מהכתת וזה נענד בחזרה ולבד, זה היה ולפור כזה. אז הנה כתוב, ולמה שהוא מגיע פה, הוא כתובה ביחד, השמן והאבימה. למען שאין את זה בעצם, זה בעצם לא. אז כאן, מה זה לא פה? בואו נגיד לכם את המלוך, אבל תגידו מדוע. זה שהלכה שהוא לא תצופה, הקרובה מצוין, שני אחים, זה יכולים לדעות קרובה. אז מה הכוונה יופי? הוא ניסה לי לחברה בליכוס.
Stonefaces, how are you, sir? You okay up there? Yeah, the thumbs up. Great for podcasting. Hi, everybody. Welcome, audience. You guys ready for a crazy Monday night or what?
שמה. או! מצוות תרופה. לא קורבן. הקורבן זה גם הוא גם בלי התרופה. זה כדי התרופה. האם יצאתי לי חובת תרופה לא תרצאי? בפסוק הזה תרופה 21. אז השאלה היא, אם זה לאט, כל אחד בנפרד אני יצאי לי חובת מצוות. האם יכול לעשות צ'ק, עשיתי מצוות. תרופה בחיים שלי. הסיבה היא שכן. אולי, תשמע, נכון, זה לא מה. אולי תראה זה בעד, אבל לא עם העברית עם יצור עוד, והיא. אומרים, לא יכול, לא ביחדו, אולי הכוונה בחוק זה שקודם הוא צריך לעשות את זה ביחד. ואחר כך שיעשה כל אחד בנפרד, שיעשה 3 פלוס. אולי יש לזה רע. אבל לא ימצאו פה, למה כתוב כתוב בהידית, אז גם כתוב פה אחת, זה ממש מיוצר, ולא יצאו פה סליחה אחת ו3. וזה השם במזמן. במזמן זה אפילו במזמן. אם אתם זוכרים, נכנסים, בתקשור הזה נכנסים לצד הזה, לצד ימין של הביס המזון, נכנסים, כאילו הכניסה לביטמיזון הוא נדרש, אצלנו התמונה הייתה הפוכה, בסדר. הממשל במערב, כן? עכשיו, היסוד, על הכבוד, אני מדבר שעבוד, זה מערב, דרום, זאת אומרת, שמה את החצה הירוק. אז הוא אומר לגמור כך, וזה השם אפילו, אם הוא רוצה את הגושר, את הטרופו, אפילו הוא רוצה את החצה האדום. הוא אמר לפני השם, עכשיו איפה האלמור במערב, אז למה, תשאיר את זה לפני השם? ומה זה? אני מולכו, לעשות, ואז לסוי, אחר כך לסוי, כירשי, לשיריים, ככה לעניין, מה הכוונה כאן, זה ממש נצחה. הנה, בואו, אתם רואים זה, כאן הוא מראה את היסוד בצהוב, בירוק, זה היסוד, אתם רואים אין יסוד, יש רק עמו כאן, וכאן כל החלק הזה אין יסוד. כאן זה דבר אין יסוד. אז זה דווקא במיוחד שזה יצחקו, אחד הוא כאילו יסוד, למה כאן הוא יסוד בשביל השיריים? השיריים, אם זה כאן, את השיריים הכניסה מאדם, תקים על היסוד, וכן הוא רואה יסוד, הוא תוהה על היסוד. ובקרן זרמית, זרע לא היה יסוד. אז לכן היו חושים בדרום מערב, אבל, כן? בצד הזה, אין יסוד בכלל, אז לא היו כאן, היו יסוד כאן. בסדר, זה במובן פה, כאן כל טובי, זה לא חטות, אבל לא אמרו, זה השם כאילו בית. גם במזרח זה נחשב, לפני השם, משהו כזה. הנה, אז גם במזרח, אפילו שזה לא ממש קרוב לאולו, לאימול, מה זה כוונה? זה כאן, לא ככה שתקום שתקום תנופות. גם. דינו כזה יעקב, כאן הוא לא יעקב. גומר יד לשכון ומודים ולשכון. שים רוסו ולא כחוכוי נעצלים את זה. שים רוסו לשכון כתוב יודות, ידעים נבלת. מה כאן? סכויים, אבל לא סכויים. בביקום זה סכויים, במצום זה סכויים.
Chaim. Really? Yes, sir. What else? Son? ESPN. ESPN. Da-na-na. Da-na-na. Alright, what is that bad your story? Now, dog, we got some shit to review. Like what? Her thing. Why? Why not? Fuck. 57. Oh, fuck it. 3761. 36 39 36 35 26 235. Enosh Seth was born. 34 36 325. Keenan son Enosh was born. 33 66 395. Mahalel son of Keenan was born. What is it? Look at that. I'm checking. Yesterday, Hashem the King of the universe was to pay us with his commandments and commanded us concerning the time of Omer. Today is 26 days, which is 3 weeks and 5 days. May the merciful one rebuild the Beit HaMikdash. May the merciful one restore unto us the service of the Beit HaMikdash to its place speedily unto his hand and so on. Today's 26th. Bullshit. Oh, look up hot Latina and Asian chicks. That next. The Asian guys.
I'm Dr. Justin Sledge. Welcome to Esoterica, where we explore the
Indian
history, philosophy, and religion.
This love hottest Indian
Difficult
chicks.
aspects in starting to study Jewish mysticism and Kabbalah is getting a handle on just how these ideas developed over time. It's tempting to think that, for instance, Kabbalah has just always existed in the form that we have it, or that Kabbalah is just one thing at all. Of course, neither of these positions is really tenable. Such notions developed greatly through the ages and are still developing. And there are now, and there have always been, numerous mutually exclusive schools of Jewish mysticism and Kabbalah. This class is meant to serve as an introduction to Jewish mysticism and Kabbalah from the point of view of its incredibly complex development from the prophets of ancient Israel to the rise of modern Hasidism in the 18th century. Of course, this series isn't meant to be exhaustive by any means, but only should serve as a springboard for deeper study and reflection, and hopefully it will also enable you to situate developments in Jewish mysticism and Kabbalah in their historical and cultural context, and hopefully embolden you to dive into the primary texts, which are admittedly as sublime as they are obscure. Let me express my gratitude to Congregation Tchia for allowing me to use these lectures to reach a larger audience here on Esoterica. If you want, you can find the entire series on the playlist Entering the Garden, Introduction to Jewish Mysticism and Kabbalah. I'll be uploading them over the next few weeks, or if you find these episodes after autumn of 2021 and you want to watch the entire series, you can find them in that playlist. If
If you find this series on Kabbalah interesting, I'd hope you check out my other content on topics of esotericism and perhaps consider supporting the production of free academic and scholarly topics in occultism, hermetic philosophy by joining my Patreon or perhaps with a one-time donation. You can find those links below, and I really appreciate your consideration. Now, let's enter the garden of Jewish mysticism and Kabbalah.
Well, I want to say welcome back. Welcome back this evening to the second part of our 10 session walk through Jewish mysticism and Kabbalah. And we talked about last time,
That's
right?
one person.
Right? We're still 1,200 years away from Kabbalah. It's still way off in the distance. So we're still very much in the time period
Game
right
changer.
around the turn of the Common Era. That is to say, around the year zero. Right? That's if you want to get an anchor of where we are. And just to recap a bit, right? Just to recap a little bit from last time, just to see where we were in the lay of the land. We defined mysticism, at least for the purposes of this class, which doing things like defining mysticism makes it certain that everybody will disagree with you that studies this stuff. So I'm just basically, anytime I say I'm going to define mysticism, it's like putting a target on my back. The way that I want to define it is as a non-rational mode in which one experiences or learns about fundamental reality, and also the traditions that grow around those experiences. So I would say that would call someone, for instance, that studies mysticism for the idea that those mystics learn fundamental truths, even though perhaps that person themselves didn't have those experiences. I would also consider that person a mystic. So I would say that there's also the idea that you lean on the mystics to learn what they learn, and that puts you in the tradition of folks who are in fact mystics. And there's an entire tradition in Judaism of what we'll call intellectual mystics. Those much later. And intellectual mystics are those that say, look, I never had this experience, but I trust that this person did, and I think that they're fundamentally right. So that's also, I think, another form of mysticism that actually doesn't involve physical experiences. And as I mentioned last time, the first Jewish mystics weren't even Jewish. The first Jewish mystics were Israelites, which is a much broader category. Remember that the Jews received that name, the Yehudi received that name as being the descendants of one of the tribes that comprise the 12 tribes of Israel. And so Jewish mystics actually make up a minority of this. Many of the prophets we have in the Bible are from all over. They're not necessarily Judahites. And we said that the two forms of mysticism that seem to have been prevalent in Israelite society at that time were folks who experienced theophany, that is to say, God showed up to them, God appeared to them, and on the other hand, for other people, God spoke to them. And if you speak on the behalf of God, that makes you a nabi, a prophet. Although sometimes those folks are referred to as rodan, as seers. The idea there is that we have the idea that either those folks can see the future or they hear something from God, and they communicate with the people. And those folks we typically refer to as the prophets. And the most important theophanies in the Hebrew Bible, historically speaking at least, we don't think that the theophany described in Exodus where God showed up to the Israelites and to Moses. We're fairly confident that that's a mythological piece of information, not a historical one, but we are relatively confident. Many scholars are relatively confident that the prophets Isaiah and Ezekiel did have some kind of phenomenological encounter. In that encounter, they recorded in the literature of the book of Isaiah and the book of Ezekiel, respectively. Now, the idea that you might be wondering, right, how can you say that Moses didn't exist? Well, it's not about whether he did or didn't, it's about what we have evidence for. And we just don't have evidence, really, to believe that happened. We have pretty good evidence to believe that the experiences of Isaiah and Ezekiel were in fact recorded. And as we talked about last time, prophecy is very well attested all over the ancient Near East, with the weird exception of Egypt. Egypt is kind of prophet-free, which, all things being equal, is great. I wouldn't want to live on. I don't down my street scream at people because they're like, move to the disbelievers, you always got to kill you all. I'm not going to talk on you.
I don't want to look anywhere near prophets, so Egypt seems like a pretty great place to be profit-free. But at any rate, we saw last week all through the ancient Near East, and this context would actually relate to the ancient Israelite context. And so he actually took a deal of ancient other ancient Near East. One of the things that happened in the ancient Near East like duels, they just did. They kind of seemed crazy to you. Kind of crazy to people back then too, right? Just because you see Jesus in your toes doesn't mean Jesus is in your toes. It might mean that you might need help. And so many people in the ancient walls thought, right, this guy's just drunk, right? And there's many cases in the Bible where people do prophecy and other people are like, yeah, they're drunk. And so this was an idea, and so we see other ancient Near East cultures engaging in prophecy and other mechanisms that wish to detect whether prophecies are reliable, or duels between prophets to establish which prophets are actually telling the truth. Prophetic duels seems to be a video game. Just saying. Fighting game prophets. And what brings prophecy to an end, and what sets us up for our transition tonight, is that, as you may remember, part of what happens in the theophany literature of the Hebrew Bible is that the God of the Israelites, Yahweh, makes himself known by revealing a bunch of very inconvenient rules. And by revealing all these very inconvenient rules, the idea is that the Israelites are bound to follow those rules, and Yahweh will protect them and give them land and provide for them to have large families and agricultural surplus. Well, what ends up happening is that for various reasons, the Israelite state is destroyed and the Judean state is destroyed. And as you might imagine, when your entire theology is founded on a vassal contract, right, and your vassal, the person who justifies your vassal relationship, gets defeated, well, that's the end of that. And so it's like you're living in a house and your landlord gets bought out by, I don't know, some sketchy investment firm. Well, you got a new landlord. You have no longer a relationship with old landlord. Well, now you got to deal with other gods. And so the Israelites have some pretty complicated problems in their hands. The pretty complicated problem on their hand is we predicated an entire theology on one system, and it didn't work. Our God seems like either God is defeated or we're defeated, and what now? Right? What do you do now with the awkward relationship with your former landlord? And so what's going to happen is that prophecy, the idea that there are people speaking on behalf of Yahweh, what's going to happen is that's going to increasingly go away, right? And a new form of religiosity is going to emerge. And that new form of religiosity is going to emerge. It's going to be a new kind of mysticism. And that new kind of mysticism is what scholars typically refer to as the apocalyptic. All right. Tanakh pop quiz. But you know this is coming. So Tanakh pop quiz. This is a trick question because, of course, it is. You're in a class about mysticism. Does anyone here know, and feel free to put it in the chat, where in the Tanakh are the events surrounding the Hanukkah story recorded? So I see Ashley saying they're not. That's the answer that's the less wrong answer. You're certainly right, they're not recorded straightforward. Anyone know where the events of the Hanukkah story are actually depicted in the Tanakh, not in the Apocrypha, like in the book of Maccabees, where they're literally described, but in Tanakh, in the Hebrew Bible, in the Old Testament, as you may know. Everyone's like, why are you asking damn questions like this? I'm the one taking this class, right? So actually, you are right. It is not described transparently in Tanakh. It is, however, described encodedly in the book of Daniel. It is actually encoded in the book of Daniel. Now, the book of Daniel is probably the least read Jewish book in the Hebrew Bible. It's in some ways one of the most confusing. But historical scholars of the Hebrew Bible, scholars of the book of Daniel, are fairly confident that encoded in a very elaborate system of symbols, the story of the conquest of Syria, Judea by Alexander the Great, civil wars between his generals that led to the various empires of the Ptolemies and the Seleucids, also with the rise of the Romans and the period of the Maccabean rebellion, are in fact described using coded language in the book of Daniel in chapters 7 through 12.
you've never read the book of Daniel, it's a very weird book. By the way, it's one of the few books in the Hebrew Bible that actually has extensive sections actually written in Aramaic. In chapters 7 through 12, there is a section that is included using a very elaborate system of symbols that describes all the things I just put out. Now, what's very interesting about this section of the book of Daniel is that the writer, whoever's writing it, is describing the very beginning of the Maccabean rebellion, right? But they never describe the end of it. Now, that leaves an open question. Why don't they describe the eventual success of the Maccabeans? And they're very pro-Maccabean, at least. They kind of temper the Maccabeans, actually. Which a lot of people were because they were terrifying anyone that wasn't a religious zealot. Everybody in this class will be killed in the back. Just FYI. Everybody.
I would they'd be like that.
I dealt with all of us for being like not them. Which is always weird about Hanukkah. Hanukkah's a complicated idea. If you're a progressive, liberal-minded Jewish person, they're like, yeah, don't celebrate the very people that would have literally the Taliban of Judaism. At any rate, we don't know why they don't finish. We don't know. They may have just died. You know, it was a war, and the Maccabees didn't like people who could, I don't know, read. And so they may have just got killed. It may have just gotten killed. And so we don't see the end of it. But what's interesting about it is we now have a really good idea about when the book was written, at least the sections. They were written sometimes after the Maccabean revolt began, but before it ended. So we know it began around 160 and concluded around 167 BCE. So we have a good idea about where that section of Daniel, when it was written down. Now, why would people encode things in strange language? Why would people encode things in weird symbols? Well, because it's a new kind of literature emerging, a new kind of religiosity emerging in the aftermath of the demise of the prophetic period. And that new kind of religiosity is what we call apocalypticism. Also, by the way, describing current events as if they're taking place far in the future is what we call in the literature ex eventu prophecy. The vast majority of historical prophets did not predict the future. We'll talk more about the ones that tried and failed in a minute. But the vast majority of prophets who try to describe all kinds of weird things, and I'm sure folks have read some sections of the book of Daniel or the book of Revelation written by St. John or Nostradamus. If folks have read Nostradamus, it's always weird stuff like an eagle comes from the east and attacks the great bear, and the bear follows the sun, and the sun turns to blood, and you're like, what in the hell are you talking about? They're not describing the future. They're actually describing the present using encoded language, right? This is what we call ex eventu prophecy. They're describing things that have happened using codes. Why would they do that? Well, because it might be politically expedient to be a little cryptic, right? Because again, what's one of the things these people like to do? Criticize the standard order of things. And do you really want to be the person living in the Roman Empire being like, the Romans suck and I hate them and God's going to kill them all? So, you want to publish that? You don't want to publish that because they'll crucify you for it. So what do you write? The Kittim, right, will arise from the sea and then blah, 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 right? You encode it. And the encoding mechanism is part of the apocalyptic literature. So what isn't apocalyptic? That's the first thing we need to do. I know, right, that when most people hear the word apocalypticism, they're thinking end of the world. They're thinking all the crazy stuff happens at the end of the world. The Messiah's going to come. There's going to be this, that, the Battle of Gog and Magog, and there's going to be all this stuff that happens at the end of the world, Battle of Megiddo, whatever. And so many people typically imagine that what apocalypticism is about the future, because the word apocalypticism has been filtered so heavily through Christianity. Christianity does tend to think of the apocalypse as like something happening in the future, although early Christians thought it was going to happen pretty soon in their lifetime. Jesus is going to drag his feet, but they really thought it was going to happen soon. This idea that it's going to happen in the future is an idea really from Christianity that has shadowed and flavored the way we use this word. Most apocalyptic writers, most prophets, for that matter, in the Hebrew Bible, in the Jewish tradition, don't do much in the way of trying to predict the future. They just don't. In fact, the most famous case where anyone tried to predict the future in the Hebrew Bible is in the book of Ezekiel, chapter 26, where Ezekiel made what at the time
What's the single most predictable prediction that one can predict? That is, Nebuchadnezzar would destroy Tyre. He predicted that because Nebuchadnezzar was destroying everything. Everything. Right? It's just like predicting, right? It's like American imperialism will continue. Yep. It's going on, right? It's a completely normal thing to predict. And then they attacked Tyre and it didn't work. Nebuchadnezzar was repulsed. And so Ezekiel himself actually has to come back later. He actually comes back in the same book and says, well, what I meant was, he has to reinterpret his own prophecy to explain the fact that he was wrong, even though it was completely actually predictable thing. So making predictions, especially nuclear predictions, is a bad idea, right? Folks may know the very famous quote from Friedrich Nietzsche, right? It never hurts a prophet to be too vague, right? If you predict on Tuesday, March 22nd, 2029, that blah, 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 well, your prophetic career rests on that. And so most of the prophecies, they don't predict the future by and large, right? And in general, by the way, that whole Nebuchadnezzar thing, for people who are biblical literates, is a real pain in their tongues, because they have to go back and explain why the Bible, why a prophet got it wrong, and then why a prophet admits he got it wrong, and then how he put a spin on it to fix it, and then they further spin it to further fix it. And my favorite example is, yeah, it officially got conquered by Alexander the Great 400 years later. Somebody conquered it, so Ezekiel wasn't totally wrong. I'm like, really? That's the best you got? Okay. Most Jewish apocalyptic texts don't have much interest in the end of the world. In fact, when they do describe the end of the world, they almost always lean on Hellenistic ideas. And those Hellenistic ideas, specifically the Stoic idea, was that basically God was going to trash everything in the end. And there was going to be some kind of global conflagration that the world would be ended, would be destroyed by a giant fire. That was a very common idea in the ancient world. And so, in many ways, the predictions they do give about the end of the world are themselves just the popular ones. If you were to go to a Greek philosopher at the time and ask, what's going to happen at the end of the world, they say, the Logos, the fire, is going to consume the whole world. They're like, sounds reasonable. They went with that. So it's actually basically, it's not even really in some sense a Jewish idea as it is a Hellenistic idea. It's Greek idea. So let's put some context on this, right? I'm going to say what the apocalyptic is in just a minute, but I want to put some context on this. What you have to understand about the rise of the apocalyptic is a time period in which it emerged the political and theological upheavals that lasted from roughly about 586 BCE, when Judea was destroyed, the last independent Jewish state was destroyed, all the way up to around 135 of the Common Era, where the last attempt at an independence movement on the behalf of the indigenous people of Judea, Jews against the Romans, led by Bar-Kokhba's defeat, with hundreds of thousands of Jewish people being killed in the process. What's important to understand about this political and theological landscape is that there is a major breakdown, as I mentioned earlier, in the theology of the time. As I mentioned earlier, right, this entire theology is built on what is called the Deuteronomic theology, which is again the idea that Yahweh and Israel have a covenant, and that covenant works in the way that the Israelites perform religious duties and Yahweh gives them stuff, right? So that is the way it's supposed to work. The prophets, the way they understood themselves was as sort of a voice for God, telling the Israelites, you're doing wrong, you're breaking the contract, and if you persist in this, God's going to punish you. God's going to break the contract. Well, after everything comes completely apart, beginning in the 8th century BCE, by the 6th century BCE, the entire Judaic state is completely destroyed. There's just a serious problem. And the serious problem is, if the prophets were right, and if every single Judahite was massacred, well, that would have brought the prophecy to a conclusion, right? You broke the treaty, and everyone's dead. Done. Right? And that would have been a very neat, when I say neat, I mean not untidy, neat to roll war about everyone massacred, but it would have been a very tidy story theologically. Well, what happened? The Babylonians didn't kill everybody. They took the entire Judean aristocratic section
into exile in Judea. And they kept on keeping on. Not in the land, right? Not in their own land, but in Babylon. And not only that, they had a good time. We have extensive records of the Jewish population living in ancient Babylon. And we know they were living relatively well. They owned slaves. They had land. They had businesses. Right? In fact, their life was so good in Babylon, in exile, that when the Jewish people were allowed to return to Israel, to Judea, by the Persians, many didn't want to go. They're like, well, I don't want to return to like a rock that has no inhabitable land. That's I can live here on these rivers, and we can like live in good. This is a great empire. They didn't want to go home, and so when you go home, right? Because they were born there, they were diaspora Jews living in Babylon in comfort and security. Why go back to a wasteland to rebuild something, right? That isn't that great after all. It's like a rock in the middle of the Judean desert. And this was a big problem. In fact, there had to be Jewish people actually pressuring them to go back. So again, when we talk about the Babylonian exile and leaving by the rivers of the Euphrates or whatever, a lot of those Jews around by those rivers, they were very happy to be in exile in Babylon. And we know that because we have records of them living there. The problem, again, is a theological problem. They're still there. They still believe in Yahweh. What do you do when the prophecy meant that you're supposed to be destroyed and you weren't destroyed? So, does God make a new deal with us? Should we still believe in Yahweh? Like, the temple's been destroyed. What's going on with what do we do with this Yahweh thing? The covenant doesn't make sense anymore. The covenantal theology doesn't make sense because there's a remainder that contradicts it. So, what do you do? What do you do? Well, there's a couple different options. You could try to maintain the old covenantal theology, and some people did try to do that. Some people did try to do that. But you can see the logical problem of trying to maintain it. The covenant's been broken. The Judahite state's been destroyed, and its aristocracy moved to Babylon. They're still alive. What to do with that? That's a real problem. Well, what arises as a way of settling that problem, right? The way of settling that problem is by shifting your theology. Right? Never let a good catastrophe go to waste. You simply innovate your theology. And what ends up emerging is a new kind of Judahite theology. In fact, I might even argue that Israelite religion went into exile when Judaism came back. The religion that the ancient Israelites practiced would be unrecognizable to anyone here. Like killing animals and burning, killing animals, burning beer and grain, a peace, a sky god. No one here recognizes a religion like that. But what comes out of exile is a theologically innovated, renovated religion that is much more like the Judaism that we might recognize now. So what happens is that they innovate. They theologically innovate. They develop a new theology that maintains the trappings of the old covenantal theology, but radically, philosophically changes what it all means. And so, what are those kinds of changes? The first big change is that Yahweh can't just be the God of Israel. To make this work, Yahweh has to be a God of everything. Not just God of Israel and the other gods being existing out there in the world, like this one called monotheism, right? Your God exists, my God exists, but my God can meet up your God. That's what the Israelites basically believe. Now, the new shift is, not only can my God be up your God's not me. There's just one God. Monotheism emerges in the aftermath of this catastrophe. So the God of the Israelites is now said to be the only God, and that God is responsible for everything. And not just responsible for everything, but responsible for everything forever. God has a plan for the entire cosmos. Right? This is going to be decisively important. God is planning everything. And everything that happens is according to that plan, no matter how bad it is, no matter how confusing it is. In fact, the worse it is evidence for the fact that God is preparing something amazing. Right? So this kind of theology is going to be decisively important in this matter. So what also has to happen here, right, is that the Israelites, right, are going to have to begin to change the way they think about their relationship to this God. And the problem is God's going to have to tell them what in the world all this means. We have to have this covenant, and it's supposed to be like this, and this is supposed to happen if we keep it, and this is supposed to happen if we don't. Well, we didn't, and we're still here. What's happening? Well, what ends up happening, what ends up emerging, is that new kinds of prophets emerge in which God shows them the plan. Right? Again, the language here, right? The older prophets heard God and communicated what God said. The new kind of prophecy sees what God's showing them, right? It communicates what God shows them in the literature. So this is a much more literary movement, and it's a much more visual movement. And it's so distinct that we now think of it as a distinct kind of religiosity. It's not prophecy. They're not speaking on behalf of God. They're describing what God has shown them, what God has revealed to them. And that is a completely different phenomenological mode of experiencing mysticism. Right? Very different kind of mysticism indeed. Now, what precipitates this? How do they get the ability to, what underwrites this? And the answer is really complicated, and the short answer is we don't know. We don't know. Because we don't have good records about how this goes down. The best theory I've seen is that what ends up happening is that the Judahites go into exile and they come in contact with an up-and-coming important religion called Zoroastrianism. Now you have to understand that when the Judahite aristocracy goes into exile, the Judahite aristocracy is still a relatively, what's the right word to describe this here? The ancient Babylonians are like the New Yorkers of the ancient world. They're cosmopolitan, they're literate, they have an ancient culture that's been there for 1,000 years. They are wealthy, they have multiple giant temples, each of which is larger than the Israelite temple. It was a metropolis on an order of magnitude that the ancient Judahites could not imagine. Ancient Jerusalem was a backwater. It was a tiny settlement of 2,000 people, right, with that little temple there that was, not much bigger than a basketball arena. Right? You're talking about an aristocracy that is relatively backwater people coming into contact with an incredibly literate, right? When the Judahites wanted to write diplomatic documents, they wrote it in the language of Babylonians. Okay? When they arrived in Babylon, they must have been bowled over by the lumpkinhood of their existence compared to the Babylonians. Again, this is like the Mississippi aristocracy being conquered and then dragged off to New York, right? You can't imagine the shell shock of what must have happened. Furthermore, they're coming in contact with a very dynamic new religion called Zoroastrianism. Zoroastrianism is, of course, a reform religion founded by the prophet Zoroaster, who we don't know much about. Even when he lived is not clear. But if I summarize Zoroastrianism to you, I bet it will sound immediately obvious what they believe. So, Zoroastrianism is a basically dualistic religion that claims that a good God and an evil God are locked into a kind of battle for the destiny of the world. The forces of good are represented by non-physical spiritual entities, and those non-physical spiritual entities are in combat with other non-physical spiritual entities that serve the bad guys. Angels and demons, right? That structure's there. Now, this good versus evil dualism is going to result in a titanic, catastrophic battle at the end of time. The forces of good will win. They will throw the forces of evil into a nether world, right? And not only that, there are even Zoroastrian prophets who are given tours of the underworld. As tours of the underworld filtered their way up to Europe, they were fairly confident that Dante Alighieri was influenced by them. The Divine Comedy is probably influenced by these tours of hell of the Zoroastrian church. Now, near the end of the world, there's going to be a savior figure, Saoshan, who will lead the forces of good against the forces of evil. And at the end of time, everyone will be resurrected bodily, they will be judged, right? And there is a massive set of literature, right, being composed by Zoroaster. And the idea is that your relationship with Scripture is more important and many ways than doing sacrifice, like sacrificing animals. Those priests, by the way, are called Magi. You may recognize them from the Bible, right? Those are the guys that show up to adore the baby Jesus. At any rate, that should all sound pretty familiar to most of us. If you take a little Judaism and add a little Zoroastrianism to it, shake it up with a cocktail shaker, pour in a glass, you have all the ingredients for a great cocktail called Christianity, or Islam, or apocalyptic Judaism. Now, again, many people detest the idea that Judaism could be influenced, informed, changed by non-Jewish, pagan people. I got news for you. When the Jewish people arrived in this area, they were viewed the Zoroastrians as a completely intellectual superior people. I guarantee you they would have been influenced. They would have been influenced. So, Zoroastrianism probably has a huge impact. And in fact, many ways, Zoroastrianism has a huge impact on all religions in general. Also, a huge impact in music. You may know Freddie Mercury, the lead singer of Queen. He was a Zoroastrian. So thank God for Zoroastrians. They produced at least Freddie Mercury. So sadly, it's a threatened religion now. It's a very tiny religion, primarily located in Iran, America, and in Iraq, or in India rather. They're not doing great, unfortunately. They're small. So now talk a little bit about the groundwork for apocalypse. What is it, right? We call it a religious mode. And I use the word mode there for folks who have some background in philosophy, right? A mode of being. It's a way of doing religion. It's not a religion itself, but it's an articulation within a religion. It existed primarily, it began to exist primarily in Judaism, obviously it persisted in Christianity. In fact, Christianity is just, in many ways, apocalyptic Judaism perfected. It's when, in fact, apocalypse becomes the religion. Right? It's when the shift completely goes over to one side, and the apocalyptic is what really matters, and Judaism becomes an adjunct writing tales of apocalypticism. One can imagine Christianity that way, but also in Islam. Islam is also largely an apocalyptic religion. Again, it's a religion based on a guy being shown things by an angel. It's fundamentally an apocalyptic religion. So what makes the apocalypse? Now, what's important to know about this is that no one sat down in Judea or in Babylon and said, I'm going to invent apocalypticism. What they did was be religious. And they innovated. And they wrote these specific religious innovations that they developed. We now call apocalypse. Right? So it's very important to note here. This is a scholarly term applied to an ancient people. It's always important to note that when you do that, when you apply the schema to ancient people, it never fits perfectly. Right? Something got left out, something got left in, but it's such a stable kind of scheme that we do think that this is an important and decisive break with the prophetic religion of ancient Israel. So, what makes apocalypse? The first thing is what I mentioned here for last, but I'll mention it first, because the last will be first. Is the name apocalypse, right? It comes from the word apocalypsis in Greek, which means to reveal or to uncover. And what's important about this literature is that what tends to group it all together is the idea that God is revealing something fundamental to the person, to the apocalyptic prophet. God's not speaking to the apocalyptic prophet, telling them, go condemn, some king, there's like king, right? Go condemn those who are being bad and being rich. That's the way the prophet Amos works. God spoke, and Amos went and said, right, woe to you people, cows of Bashan. No, here we have God revealing various kinds of things to a human agent. And typically, that's being mediated by a divine, semi-divine being, typically an angel. So an angel shows up and says, let me show you something. And what do they show them? All kinds of things. What kinds of things? Typically things like cosmology. Apocalyptic Judaism is very interested in how the universe works. If you've ever read the Hebrew Bible, one of the things that is weirdly missing from the Hebrew Bible is any discussion of how the world arranged, right? There's some vague discussions in the book of Genesis, but there's no real sense of like, what is the world exactly? Because they're not really interested in what is the world exactly, right? They're interested in what's going on in Judea with this king. So cosmology becomes very, very important in in the apocalyptic part of Judaism. Also, they're very interested in the past. This is sometimes ironic, considering that most people think of apocalypticism as primarily dealing with the future, but most of the apocalypticists are interested in the past. So they're very interested in how to get here. And the thing they're very interested in is where did evil come from, right? Because if evil is in the world and it's out there, what kind of existence does it have? And they're very interested in where it came from. You'll never see much in the Hebrew Bible about discussing the origins of evil. Right? Even the whole talking snake in the Garden of Eden, the writer of that story in the book of Genesis never says, and that's where all evil comes from. It names some things, right? You have to work for your bread, and women's child pain, and the pain in having a child will increase. By the way, it says that the pain will increase. It never says it wasn't. It just went worse, right? So it never says, and that's where everything went off the rails, right? The apocalyptists will be very interested in this. Also, they're very interested in the use of symbolism, right? The Bible doesn't do much more in symbolism, right? But the apocalypticists will be very interested in symbolism. They're like virtually encoding their writings. Then also, again, as I mentioned earlier, with the exhibit to prophecy, they're going to be really interested in engaging in the same kind of social criticism that we saw in the historical Israelite prophets, but they're going to be doing it in a way that in a literary form in which they encode those criticisms by describing them as if they're happening in the future, right? So they describe present events in an encoded way as if they're happening in the future. That's going to be a tip-off for an apocalyptic writer. Amos didn't encode anything. He called people cows for being rich. He's like, you people are bad because you're rich and God hates you. Like, he's not encoding anything. Like, he's not like, and the cows will become fat of the land. No, he's like, I hate you people and God hates you too. Right? That's not what these apocalyptic folks do. Also, what they're really interested in is oppression. Right? They're very interested in oppression and tribulation. Specifically, why do bad things keep happening to us? If our God is the only God, and we have a special relationship with this God, why do the Greeks just like whip our ass? Like, that's a bad thing? Like, we just get whipped by the Romans. They just killed like a bunch of us. Like, what's going on, God? Right? That's a real important question to ask, right? I mean, we all ask the sort of like, why bad things happen to good people question? It's like, why did we all get wiped out for most of us? They're very interested in why this tribulation's happening, right? And again, it's a tribulation. The idea is it's real bad for a while, but for the apocalypticists, God has a plan, and not only that, the apocalypticists claim to know the plan, right? They claim to know the plan. They're also at some level interested in the end of the world. Right? Now, and I say end of the world, what they're really interested in is the righteous and the wicked being separated, and the righteous being rewarded and the wicked being damned. There's no end of that in Israelite religion. Everybody in Israelite religion wants the same underworld, Sheol. It doesn't matter if you're a good person or a bad person. You want the same place and so. Well, the apocalyptists say that's not fair. Bad people will get punished. This idea comes directly from what Zoroaster, right? So bad people get punished and the good people will get rewarded. That's the extent, really, of how things are going to go down in the future. And of course, right, why does that make sense? Well, it makes sense because a lot of good people, or at least people they thought they were good, were suffering enormously under foreign occupation. They're also interested in otherworldly journeys, right? They'll go on journeys of the various realms of heaven, or they'll go on journeys to the various parts of the afterlife. It's very dualistic. That is to say, the world in apocalyptic literature is very thoroughly divided between the good guys and the bad guys, right? And the good guys are going to win, and the bad guys are going to lose. You don't see that in Israelite religion. In Israelite religion, the prophets are, you're doing bad, but if you do good, God will not punish you. In apocalypticism is, you are bad, and God is going to destroy you. It's a much more dualistic world. Which again, if you study history, in times of intense political crisis, right, dualism emerges. The good guys and the bad guys, right? Whether it's the bourgeoisie and the proletariat, right? Or whether it's the sons of light versus the sons of darkness, polarize the world, and that's often how you describe. And again, I think Marxism is a kind of apocalypse in many ways. he would hate that idea, but you can have literal in his grave. Paying back for that anti-Semitism. So anyway, right? Also, what's really important about apocalypticism is someone's going to fix all this, right? Because clearly, if you look at the time period being conquered by the Greeks, being conquered by the Romans, being massacred by various people, it's pretty clear that we're not going to be the ones to fix this. And so what do they say? There's going to be some kind of savior figure who's going to enter into history and fix all this. And that, of course, as it ferments a little while, becomes the fine wine of Messianism. That some person, or persons, by the way, early Messianism never agreed about how to even be. Many people wanted to be two messiahs. And one of those would die, right? And another one would become a military general and win. So ancient Judaism was never clear about there being just one Messiah. Many sections of Judaism actually believe there would be at least two. So, right? Now the Christians fix that by like having him die and come back later. Just waiting on that last part. So they can roll in one dude, which is pretty smart. Also, there's all kind of anti-Messiah characters, right? You have a good guy fighting for the good guys. You're gonna have a bad guy fighting for the bad guys. That's the Antichrist. And there are lots of different stories about the bad guys, right? Christianity really likes the bad guys too, and they make good guys. The structure of heaven and hell is going to be a big part of the apocalyptic world. If they're going to describe to you where you're going to go when you die or when you get resurrected, they want you to know about it. And there's really vivid depictions of the hellish worlds in the afterlife. It's pretty motivating. Like, I don't want to go there where they like blow human excrement forever. That sounds bad. I don't want to go there. I'm going to be a good guy, right? So they're very interested in the structures of the various heavens and the hells, and they're also interested in the idea that behind the scenes of what's apparent to us, the world's actually being dominated by a vast majority of spiritual creatures. Typically, we now know them as angels and demons. And so, again, if you look at the Hebrew Bible, there are basically very little in terms of angels and demons. They kind of show up from time to time, right? But in the apocalyptic, they are everywhere. Angels and demons are literally all around you, engaging in titanic spiritual warfare for the destiny of the world. Right? And every country has its own angel. Right? Michael's the angel of this country, Gabriel's the angel of this country, and every country has their own demon, etc. So the scale of things is also bigger. In Israelite literature, they kind of don't like the Egyptians, and they kind of don't like the Assyrians. But you never have a global analysis of the world, because they're kind of a parochial people. The apocalyptic writers are not parochial. They imagine the entire world divided into countries, and they explain political science in terms of this spiritual battles that are going on behind the scenes that we don't see. Their literature, which we'll talk about more in just a moment, is typically pseudo-anonymous, although they like to claim that very ancient people wrote them. So Enoch wrote this, or Abraham wrote this, or Shem wrote this. They like to allege ancient authorship, because this just like Manasseh, the dude down the street, wrote this. Who cares? Right? Like, Manny wrote a book about angels. Yeah, Manny, the guy that like fixed the shoes. Like, the hell is Enoch? Right? So, Manny the shoe guy, Manny was like, nah, Enoch wrote this. Right? And so he puts Enoch's name on it, right? The patriarch who never died, and was like, Noah's grandfather, whatever. Noah's father, like, yeah, Enoch. Dude, yeah, he was real. Let's read his book. Right? So you throw a name like Abraham on there, people are willing to read your book. They're not going to read Manny's book about the end of the world. No one cares about what Manny thinks. So let's talk about this literature, right? Let's get into what makes this work, right? Why would anyone write all this stuff down? Well, the first is historical and psychological. You're living as Judahites in a world of theological and political turmoil. Right? Now, I don't know about you. I don't like turmoil. And when my life is in turmoil, one of the things I try to figure out is, why is this happening to me? Right? Because we think, because we're stupid, that if we understand something, we get power over it. You don't. Right? You can be real smart, and they basically just like throw you into a jail or whatever, right? But if bad is happening to you, you want to understand why. There's no person I don't think of, right? You can be as existentialist as the day is long, right? And you're still going to want to know what's going on. Why is it happening? Right? Why is this happening? Very few people are going to suffer through immense, like, physical and psychological turmoil and think to themselves, okay, guess that just happened. Right? Most people don't do that. So what do? They try to explain why it's happening. Further, right? Not only do they want to explain why it's happening, they want to feel like it's not for no reason. No one likes the idea that you just went through a traumatic experience and it's meaningless. You're on a rock, free from the sun, in the middle of a void, and in 4 billion years, the sun feels small on this planet, and every bad thing that's ever happened to you is now going to be a memory. This earth won't even exist. We don't want to, that doesn't make sense from a human perspective. We want to understand why our traumas are happening. We want our traumas to mean something. And so, what do they mean? Well, the overwhelming data we get from the apocalyptic literature is that God has planned every single thing that's happening in the world. So this is a very deterministic literature. And that your suffering is not random. It's part of a plan. And what's that plan? The end of the world. Right? The world is going in a very specific direction, and God is going to make things right. Punishing the wicked, rewarding the righteous. This is all part of the plan. I think Nietzsche about tonight. It's wrong. Right? I think Nietzsche said, right, that the person who has the life endure anyhow. Right? The person that has a life endure anyhow. People can get through anything. As long as they have a reason why it's happening. Right? Okay, we have the backwards. Right? And so the idea here, right, is that basically what you get is you get a reason why it's happening to you. And what's the reason? It's all part of a plan. And the apocalypticists have been revealed that plan. Lastly, a big part of this entire whole drama is that no one likes being colonized. No one likes being oppressed. No one likes having their country destroyed by foreigners. No one likes foreigners moving into their country and taking all their stuff and enslaving them. No one's really about that. That's bad. And so you want to protest against it, right? You want to protest against it, right? The Algeria, when the French come into Algeria and destroy their country, the Algerians like, we have it, right? And they protest against it. Now, there are a lot of ways you can protest. One way of protesting is militarily trying to fight the Romans. You can try that. And people did. And they had very limited success. You can also write books about how they're bad, and God hates them, and God's going to judge them, and God's going to kill them eventually. Now, again, as I said earlier, you can't come out and just write that way, right? Who are the Romans? Tiberius' sons. God's going to kill him. And the Romans are going to be like, that's interesting. How would you like to be crucified? Right? So they're going to do that. They're going to encode it. And if you know, you know, right? I'm a being, right? If you know, and anyone who knew how to read this literature could read the code. They're like, yeah, they're Romans. They'll get their ass whooped by this God and whoop their ass. And you're like, yeah. And the Romans are like, what are you reading? Nothing. Right? So that was a way of encoding this. Now, how does all this work? God has to tell you. God has to reveal to you the plan. You, the apocalyptic prophet. And that's what this literature is. It's the plan. It's the way the world is structured. God built the world. God structured the world. History itself is unfolding according to very set rules set down by God. And everything is part of the plan. Everything's part of the plan. And the apocalyptic literature is marked by that reveal, that uncover. As you might imagine, in a world of turmoil, which I know Jewish people go through turmoil, right? Every once in a while, there's a little turmoil here and there, right? A little turmoil. You can imagine this was incredibly persuasive form of religiosity. It explained why the world was the way it was, right? It described why bad things were happening. It told you where it all came from. It tells you how it's going to end. And it tells you that the things that you're going through as a people, as an individual, are not random. And they're not punishment from God. Right? Also, by the old Israelite theology, every bad thing happening to you is punishment from Yahweh. Right? No. You're suffering because that's part of the plan in which Yahweh is secretly collaborating and is going to look to. that idea, I don't know about you, right, is one of the most seductive ideas imaginable. And again, when I track this onto things like, again, folks may know, I wrote my dissertation on Marx. It's difficult to read much Marxist propaganda as anything other than repackaged apocalypse, right? It reads very much like an apocalyptic literature, right? Evil emerged with various modes of production, right? It's being driven forward by history, and eventually it's going to come to a cataclysmic battle. After that, everything's going to be great, right? Dictatorship, Rothschild, or whatever. You're like, didn't we heard this already, right? Marx is like, it's material now, son. It's not God doing it. It's history. So you can see how influential this is. The apocalyptic form of literature flourished for hundreds of years. One can even argue for 1,000 years, beginning roughly about 350 BCE and extending all the way through the Middle Ages. Honestly, you're like, see a few turmoil. Yeah, it continued. And so the apocalyptic literature kept being produced. Christianity is in many ways an apocalyptic religion. It's a religion that more forcefully accepts the apocalyptic paradigm than any other form of Judaism, with the exceptions of the Essenes. Those folks look at Rome for the Dead Sea Scrolls. They believed it so much, by the way, that when the Jews revolted against the Romans, the folks that lived at that site, Josephus can be trusted to do anything other than make Josephus look good. They thought the world was about to come to its final end. They tried to organize a resistance to the Romans. They were massacred at 2 battles. And guess what? They stored all their scrolls in the caves near their buildings, and they never came back for them. Why? Because they were dead. Because they thought this was all part of the plan. Lucky for us, scrolls sat there more or less for a couple thousand years, and now we have them. And we can even see in the literature where they're planning for this battle, even describing the banners and horns they will be blowing and carrying in the battle. And I bet you, when that legion of Roman soldiers were like, why are they blowing horns and stuff, right? And if they think that's going to work, and then the Romans massacred them, and they left their scrolls there. He wasn't a habit of trouble. I mean, when you look to believe God's going to intervene on your behalf at the very last moment to save you, if that's your battle plan, stay home. Right? If that's your strategy. And that was their strategy. Many of the big books of the Bible, like Daniel, is imbued with apocalypticism. The War Scroll, the Dead Sea Scrolls, is a very apocalyptic text. Perhaps the most famous apocalyptic text of all time is the Book of Enoch. The book not included in either Christian or Jewish literature, but preserved, thank God, by the heroic people of Ethiopia, who have never been colonized, FYI, because they fought like the devil to have it not happen, and they're brilliant tacticians, but they preserve all these writings that are so important in Judaism. So anytime I think about what the Ethiopian people have done to preserve my Jewish writings, I am in enormous thanks for what they've done. So what's going to also happen in this movie to this next time is that apocalypticism is also going to give rise to a new form of mysticism called the Merkava mysticism, which we'll be discussing next time. How do you get this vision? How do you go see what God has to show you, or what angels have to show you? Well, spiritual techniques were developed for this, and a new form of mysticism arose as a subset of apocalypticism, in which mystics describe going into God's palaces and being shown this stuff. We'll get to that next week. It's scary. As you might imagine, as a teenager. Apocalyptic Judaism, right, and rabbinical Judaism, however, never quite saw eye to eye. The rabbis never fully embraced apocalypticism, right? Because the rabbis are all about the day-to-day keeping on of religious survival, not the titanic battle at the end, right? The rabbis are more like, how do we do Judaism now the temple's destroyed? How do we move the temple into our home? We have apocalyptic people out there being like, God's going to judge these people tomorrow, right? So, in many ways, apocalyptic Judaism was never quite meshed with rabbinical Judaism. And again, one famous quote from the Talmud, right? It says that for every time you try to calculate when the Messiah will come, God delays the coming of the Messiah the years that you calculate in the future. The rabbis don't like this, right? When Rabbi Akiva said, right, that Shimon Bar Kokhba is the Messiah will save us all, the other rabbis make fun of him. They're like, grass will grow in your cheeks before the Messiah comes. Like, that's not going to happen. Unfortunately, grass did grow in his cheeks because he didn't get married because he was burned alive supporting Bar Kokhba. Sometimes history's mean, right? The apocalyptic is very, very dangerous. But it was incredibly popular. On the screen right now is a short list of all the apocalyptic literature from this time period. If I were to grab my collection of apocalyptic literature off the shelf, it would be longer than the Hebrew Bible. An enormous amount of literature, right, was produced in the apocalyptic genre. Dozens of books that were very popular. For instance, at the Dead Sea Scrolls, there are more copies of the Book of Enoch than there are copies of Leviticus. That's Torah, folks. That's like the Torah. The Torah. There are more copies of the Book of Enoch there. Right? They're more interested in Enoch. If we can take the amount of scrolls they had, right, as any indication. So the apocalyptic literature was incredibly important. And even with the rise of Christianity, it didn't stop being produced. We have dozens of Christian apocalyptic texts, right, including the Apocalypse of John and other ones. You might be asking why. Well, Jesus had this habit of not coming back soon enough. And Christians underwent turmoil too. They were being persecuted by the Roman Empire. They were being marginalized by the Jewish people that didn't really like them. They thought they were weird. They faced their own turmoil. Jesus wasn't coming back. People started dying. Well, what do we do with people dying and Jesus not coming back? Year after year after year. Well, you invent further and further apocalyptic ideas about what's going on. And the persecutions are all part of the plan, right? Martyrdom becomes a thing you should rush into. That's part of God's plan, right? Part of God's plan. Of course, also in the Islamic literature, apocalypticism would also become enormously influential, and many apocalyptic Christian and Jewish ideas also make their appearance in the Quran. The Dajjal is a good example of a sort of antichrist character, the Battle of Gog and Magog, the main battle at the end of the world, which occurs in the book of Daniel and is translated into the Battle of Megiddo. And in Christian literature, even the return of Jesus and the resurrection of the dead, these are all apocalyptic ideas that also occur in Islam. So Islam is also deeply influenced and in some sense an apocalyptic religion in itself. Judaism is going to increasingly abandon apocalypticism. And the answer for that is the same answer why the book of Maccabees is not included in the Bible. The rabbis, right? And also, by the way, why the Hanukkah festival is not about the Maccabees, it's about a miracle. The reason why? Disastrous rebellion after disastrous rebellion. The rabbis didn't want any more ramblings. They were tired of that machismo, we're going to fight the Roman stuff, because it just got us killed. So they said, we're not doing that anymore, and we're not going to prioritize that. And so, as you can imagine, this apocalyptic literature really gears people up to do rather extreme things. Right? Because again, they all think it's part of the plan, and God's going to intervene in history and do whatever. It doesn't happen. Over and over and over again, it doesn't come to pass. But the rabbis don't like this, they think it's dangerous, and they marginalize it. And eventually, rabbinical Judaism, right, moves past apocalyptic literature, and very little of it gets produced. Or not so much. Very little gets produced in the aftermath of the 135 rebellion of Bar Kokhba. But there is some, right? There are some texts that do get produced, like the Apocalypse of the 10 Signs, and Perkem Mashiach, and things like this. So the literature does survive a little bit longer. Just to wrap up for tonight, folks, needless to say, apocalypticism as a mode of religiosity, I would argue is the most enduring mode of religiosity in the world today. So enduring that apocalyptic ideas have entered even into things like Buddhism, right? Apocalyptic ideas flowing from this tradition have even entered into things like Buddhism. Ultraringo is a good example of apocalyptic quasi-Buddhist sect. You may remember them for having poisoned the subway system in Japan with sarin gas in the 1990s as part of an apocalyptic agenda. To this day, in a 2012 poll, nearly 15% of people worldwide believe the world will end in their lifetime. That's millions of people, folks. That's hundreds of millions of people that believe the world's going to end in their lifetime. That's an apocalyptic idea, right? And apocalyptic sects are a huge part of American religiosity. One can think of the Branch Davidians out there in Waco, Texas, and other kinds of things. And again, of course, those folks, part of the reason what motivated them to stay in that building was an apocalyptic understanding of history. And of course, that probably led to them being massacred by the U.S. government. They had their own hand to play in it too, but I do think that was pretty
significant mismanagement. At any rate. Well, biblical Judaism and Kabbalah are to win the day over and against apocalypticism. Apocalypticism was enormously important over the course of about 500 years in Judaism specifically, and it has made an enormous impact on religiosity. I might even argue, like I said earlier, that apocalypticism as a mode of religiosity is perhaps the dominant religious mode in the world today. Right? I would be willing to make that argument, I think. But what's going to emerge in terms of mysticism for the purposes of our learning together is that a form of apocalyptic, practical apocalypticism, that's to say, a mysticism in which mystics attempt to descend into the throne room of God, is going to emerge out of the apocalyptic literature. And that form of mysticism is going to be what we're tackling next week, called Merkabah mysticism. Merkabah, chariot mysticism. You also may know the word Merkabah because the Israelis have named a tank their equivalent of the M1 Abrams after being the chariot of God, which seems to me for a whole lot of reasons. But anyway, what I'm going to put on the screen right now are just some recommended readings. If you want to grab these ISBNs, and I'm also going to share these slides with everybody for the class so you can have access to the slides later. But if you want a great apocalyptic literature reader, it's just a collection of apocalyptic literature. This is a really great text by Reddish, the large scholar of apocalypticism in the world now. Jonathan Collins has called The Apocalyptic Imagination as the definitive study of apocalypse. It's the book. Right? If you take a college level class of apocalypticism, you'll be reading Collins' book. If you're interested in Christian apocalypticism, Bernard McGinn, the leading scholar in Christian mysticism, has written a really great book about apocalyptic traditions in the Middle Ages. People like watching the fjord, nuts in the most amazing way possible. And of course, also John Reeves has published another text called Trajectories in Near Eastern Apocalypticism, and this actually covers Jewish apocalypticism through the Middle Ages, which doesn't get much play, mostly because a lot of it's not been translated, but Reeves provides a great introduction to that literature, which is also forms of apocalypticism that survived into Jewish apocalypticism that survived in the Middle Ages. So, again, another form of mysticism that emerges from the breakdown of prophecy, but renovates prophecy to do a phenomenologically different task. To show rather than tell, and show what? The whole plan of the universe, and how you, as a Jew, right, or as a non-Jew, maybe as a Roman, how you fit into it, right? And that form of mysticism, I think, is just incredibly Christianity. We all seem to Christian books are predicting the world, whatever. None of this is imaginable without the apocalyptic turn in Judaism during beginning in the 4th century. Welcome back, and thank you for joining me as I explore the garden that is Jewish mysticism and Kabbalah.
עכשיו, רב אמר שיש כאן את האיסור. הוא מת, מה רבי איפה שהוא מלווה, מה הוא עושה לו? וכל אלה הייתי תפיסה לי. יופי בסנדר, ולוי ביועץ
That didn't record?
בכל עת, מישהו היה בכל עצמני, מביא שתי הלחם.
They didn't record there?
שתי הלחם. סיימתי שנה של
What the fuck?
כל הבין בקורבן יחלה בגבול. שתי לחמיס. וכל הבויסס שבסוף גישון בסיזו, הנה, נשכח שאתה בקיים. אבל לא לעשות עליהם. רק הציבור מביא, רק הרב, תקשיבו, לא תקשיב, לא היופי. ציבור מביא חובלי יופי, מייבי, שמייבי טובות להיות, יכול להיות שיופי לא יכולה בשביל לחם למה, איפה זה דבר הזה יופי?
Good job recording that shit.
יש כזה מושג, תשבו שהציבור, אבל לא נוח ליסור בזה. הוא רואה שכל הרבי, מה בדיוק אתה מבין? מה זה הסור הדבש? שהלחם מן הסור זה ביטוי מן הדבש. או, מה זה ביטוי מקורי? זה משהו יפה ששלמה עשה היום.
What is this bullshit?
שימו לב, יש גוזלות למעלה. שמתם לב? שצפורים. צריך סבול. זה הכל היום של המצווה, ללחוץ את המצווה, לבוא ישראל, יעבוד את המצווה. אני עובד אבי בעלת מצווה ויגיד שאני מתי בעד, ואיש המגוי גדול עצום ורע. עצום. ושתי הלחם לא יקנו לדובו. שתי הלחם לא יקנו לדובו? מה? אי אפשר להביא שתי לחם לדובו ותניו? אם נאמר כל צול, לא נאמר כל דבש. למה כתוב את המילה כל סול? למה כתוב כל דבש? תגיד, כל סול הוא דבש. מה זה כל וכל? למה כל דבש לא נאמר כל סול? לפני שיש בסול מה שאין בדבש, ויש דבש מה שאין בסול. סול הוא גם כלולוי במקווה. אתה רואה את המושג שאפשר להביא סול. עוד שנייה להגיד מה זה. דבש, לא יודעים את זה. לכן צריכים להגיד כל דבש. דבש, הוא בשירים מנובים. אפשר, דבש בשירה אפשר למות. סול הוא גם שירה מנובים. אי אפשר סול בשירה. אבל זה שיש בסול מה שאין בדבש, ויש בדבש מה שאין בסול. תכלס, בכל אחד יש משהו שם בדבר אחר, הוא צריך להיות כל סול, הוא צריך להיות כל דבר. עכשיו צריכים להבין, מה זה הדבר הזה? סול, הוא צריך להיות להבין לשמיינו, איפה הכתרנו סול במקדש פעם אחת? לכאורה, עליו שתי הלחם לדור ונדובו. הנה. לכאורה זה חייב להיות רק דבר אחד. שתי הלחם שמקריבים לדובו. רגע, למה זה חייב להיות שתי הלחם שמקריבים לדובו? אולי זה שתי הלחם שמבין בכל בו ובשמואל. כאילו, איך קפצת לשתי הלחם של לדובו? הנה, היה שאפשר כן להביא שתי לחמים בלדובו. מה התירוץ? התירוץ שאי אפשר לשים את השתי לחמים של שמואל על המזבח. לא עושים שתי לחמים של שמואל על המזבח? איך אני יודע? מה זה הלחם לדקור ונדובו? זה מזבח. אם ההלם כל בו, אם זה השתי הלחם של שמואל, מה זה אומר? זה לא יכולים להגיד שזה לדקור ומזבח. זה ודאי לא על המזבח, אנחנו היה לא מוכנים את זה. אז נשארנו רק אפשרות. שיש שתי לחם שאנשים מקריבים לדובו, זה הולך על המזבח. או שעל התורה אומרת, לא לשים את זה. הקופון אומרים שאפשר להביא שתי לחם ונדובו, אבל מה אתה אומר לי שאי אפשר להביא שתי לחם ונדובו? אומר רבי לא, לקרוא רבי מור, חידוש כאן זה, שהשתי הלחם לא מונים מהשתי הכנסים להיקרב. זאת גמור, רבי אמרו, אתם שומעים? לא לקרוא בגמור עם הכוונה זה, הייתי חושב, בגלל שאתה לא שם את השתי לחמים למזבח, אז אולי לא תשים את הכנסים על המזבח, בכל אחת. זאת גמור יופי ביקורים נעמי. או תגיד אותו סבור בביקורים, נסנה, נגיד זאת, אפשר גם יעשה, אם שמתם לב, דבר מעניין, בדיוק גוזלות, ביחד עם הביקורים, אז יש, זה בא ביחד. אוי אוי אוי. הגוזלות האלה נחשבים אוי אוי. והסלם שביודו, מתום נתויאנו. מעניין. אם הוא עשיר, הוא מביא סל חשוב, אז עשיר מקבל את זה בחזרה. אם הוא מביא סל פשוט כזה, אז לוקחים את זה מהעונה. אז גמרא שם אומרת, אז לא הנימסו. באנגלית אומרים, the rich get richer. יש אומרים שהעשירים נהיים יותר עשירים, והגמור אומר שהעניים נהיים יותר עניים. זה שאתה עני ואתה לא יכול להביא איזה משהו יחס, תביא איזה סל פשוט, אז הכל נותח לך גם את זה. אבל רואים, גם הביקורים יש להם, אתה אומר שזה דווקא הסעור, דווקא המינקו, השתי הלחם, לא, גם הביקורים יש לו חלק אחד שהוא פירות, וחלק אחד שהוא בשר. לא, זה לא קשור, הם לא קשור אחד לשני, זה לא כמו המינקו, שהשתי הלחם והבשר זה אותו דבר, אנו לאט הביקורים מודעות. זה סתם בא ככה לעשות את הביקורים יותר יפה. אנו לאט הביקורים מודעות, יש מושג לאתר ולחבב, נוי מצווה, זה כן יבנבי. אין דבר יותר יפה מאשר לשבת ולסבר שפה, נעים, מושג, טיפה יפה, זה יפה, כסות יפה. ככה, זה חלק מהחיים. זאת אומרת, בואי והחומר מרפקיז לו, המל נמצא חטוס או אי פגע מהמזבח מים. אם אתה מעלה את הבשר של החטוס, במקום לאכול את זה, זה אמור להיות הכהן, ואתה שם את זה למזבח, האם זה אותו דבר כמו שדיברנו קודם, שאתה שם את הבשר של בהמה חטוס על המזבח, אמרנו שזה סודו אירייס. האם העוף זה אותו דבר, מה השאלה? כל שממנו מישהו במרפונו, בהו, אין ממנו מישהו, זה צריך להיות חלק שעולה על המזבח, וחלק שלא אמור לעלות על המזבח, וזה יש ניסוי, וכאן שום דבר שעולה על המזבח, אז אולי אתה לא חלק. ותראו את כל ששמוי קורבון, והאמנע משמוי קורבון. כאן, התורה קוראת לזה קורבן, הנה זה הפסוק, ואם לא אוי לו קורבן אוי. אוי זה קורבן, אז עכשיו חלק שאם יש לך שם קורבן, אז יש לך איסור. אפילו ששום דבר לא עולה על מזבח. כן, מה כל הדרשה? אם חלק עולה על מזבח, אז יש איסור לשים את החלק השני. או שאין שום חלק שעולה על מזבח, ואולי אין איסור לשים את החלק שני. לא, אבל תחת זה קורבן. אומר הגמרא אומר לי, כל ששמוי קורבן. אינם משמוי קורבן. זהו, זה התיאור. זה תחת זה קורבן. אז אומרת הגמרא כתלוי, אולי זה רואים עוד כל שממנו לאישים. רבי רואים את כל ששמוי קורבן. לא, ובלעזר אומר שזה צריך להיות חלק עולה על המזבח, מכיוון שהאחד הזוי, החלק לא עולה על המזבח, אז אין שום איסור לשים חלק ממנו על המזבח. תגידו, לא, שמוי קורבן, מכיוון שקוראים לקורבן, יש איסור לשים אותו על המזבח. מדינה היום, פיזית, שכר זוי, הנה זה הסוגיה שלה. שכר זוי. רב אומר, שבר, מצורי כביניי, גם זה לא עולה לך על המזבח. נכון ללוי, אבל זה נחשב קורבן, זה ללוי, כל קורבן לרב הוא סבוך שמן שמצוי לו, נכון שזה לא עולה על המזבח, זה עדיין נקרא קורבן. כל רבה, סוער ועל תפקיד לי, אם יהיה לו כולו, סוף סימניים, כתוב סוער, אז אולי צריך את כל השיעור של הסוער, שהגמרא תסביר עוד שנייה. מה קוראים לשר חלק ממנו? אתה גם חייב, אתה גם הכל, חייבו ממנו. איך אני יודע, אם אתה מעבר את הסוער עם מצו,
We start the episode, the end of the episode, of the people on the show and what happened, and it's always insane crazy.
Unbelievable. איך אתה יודע שחייב על היבוא? אבל לא יקים סוער.
What's happened? We have some gigs coming up, stand up live in Phoenix in September. I'll be in Toronto.
אין לי אלו כזית, הייתי חושב, סוער זה רק בקסם כזית שלם על זה. רק כזית, איך נדבר בקסם, משהו, אפילו משהו, חצי זית, אבל לא עם הכל. אפילו חצי שיעור, חייב. אולי...
Guys, we're not allowed to announce that yet. Whoopsie, they just did. And then maybe some other news. Yeah, but they're not allowed to talk about maybe. Just yet. I don't know why I wouldn't be allowed to talk about it. It probably means it's a pretty big deal. So if there's some big deal happening in Canada in the next few months, I'm probably going to be there too. But yeah, you see what I did there?
Just confuse everybody.
And everybody in this stream, the Canadians right now, I'm like, oh, I know exactly what he's talking about. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Fuck yeah. So let's get it going, shall we? Every week I have two amazing guests on the show. This one, very special. Very excited to have these two on. Two of my favorite comedians. Two of my favorite correspondents from the Gateway Show. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Al Magical and Asaf Monby, everybody. Unbelievable. Awesome. Al Magical. It's exciting. Get on in. Here they are. Now,
Second time. I think I was too nice the first time.
Fuck yeah. Love that. Awesome. I guess that means you're good.
It's awesome.
Yes. Awesome.
I don't.
Sort of. And there's something to constructive criticism. And that can be great. And either way, that's what I know.
I
shit. I know it's a good podcast.
You wouldn't have signed up for this when you first started comedy?
No. Under no circumstances would I have ever signed up for this. I barely did open mics when I first started out. I fucking hated the entire process. I looked at one guy who just started in San Francisco, this place called the Lucky Store. He's like fucking annoying, almost passed out. I was like, my buddy, I'm like, we need you to get into comedy clubs. He goes, like, come to the I'm just gonna do that. And I just started fucking doing that. And good luck.
Everything instead of me asking questions, I like to leave it in somebody else's hands to ask our esteemed guests questions. So I always have to think in advance about something that he might
למה את הגעת לארבע?
All right.
אז לא יקנו שום סוי ולא יקנו שום דבש. אז זה שתיים ודאי. אבל כאן יש לי חידי שצריך, לא יקנו חיזמו בישראל, שדבש תצא ביחד שלישי, ונגיד בדבש, גם נדבש את הדבש עם הסור וגם את הסור בדבש. זה למדנו, הנה.
He burns it in his backyard, just like
burn things. Yeah,
זה למדנו.
I just create huge bonfires. No, I think I think recycling is probably a good thing. I would encourage people to recycle. That's what I would say. Go out and recycle. I never know where the fuck to do it. I never see any. There's no, in my building, there's no.
אבל עוד הגמור הם ככה, זה הולך לשני כיוונים, גם סור ודבש וגם דבש עם סור, ומי נתחייב ארבע. לא יקנו גם סור, יקנו קופה. היום לא יקנו לדעת, יש לך מילה.
Here's my dad. So I have about 45.
אני לא ראיתי שפעם כולה תמרות זה. Okay, young child, your first day. Do you remember everything you need to do?
Yes, Rev Comet. I know everything perfectly. Here's your mental student. Take it. Run it on. Such a simple marathon for something so special? I think I can do better. I'll have 12 of those to go, please.
Okay.
Hey, what do you think you are doing? Are you aware that this could cause you 4 bald moves? Since this Kurgun is a mixture of Seor and Lush, it's a Lush Chevy Comus and there's no Multus.
Oh, אז מה זה לאו שבגללו? לאו שומות שכולל דברים. אם הלאו לא, רק הדבר כולל כמה דברים. זה לאו שבגללו, זה לאו שבגללו.
Because I'm waiting to recycle that. But I don't know where there's a place to do it. So I just run around LA with like a huge pile of just
all you gotta do is find the nearest old Chinese lady and
yeah, just give them to her.
Hey, Matt, why don't you stick to fucking playing songs and not asking shit questions?
Yeah, that was the worst question. I totally agree with you. That was Pat Raven from 3-point range. It was pretty fitting that it was a recycling joke because that joke was garbage. Son of a bitch. That was unrecyclable garbage. And you better hope you ever got Mr. Magic.
First of all, I'm glad you know the difference. You know that we get confused for each other constantly on the day. Like anytime I'm off doing something, there's a U.S. News and World Report article. Also, Mommy was in Virginia today, and so I could just picture him, and I was there. And
it's so weird. It's so, like, you know what I mean? Like, we can complete it.
beard and hair.
Hair, you know.
You do have excellent taste.
Yeah.
You guys are both brown.
What? Yeah.
You think that's the reason why? Because
I think so. I think that's
it's
just
just a shade of brown. Like they just, I've even been mistaken for Wyatt at times. Yeah. I actually, he's a black guy on the show. Or was. But you know, Wyatt had a huge afro and like a mom, and it was like I would get mistaken for him all the time. I think white people panic when they see brown people and they don't know like what would happen. I think what happens, this is what I think happens. They see you, they know that you're not me, but I'm the name they come up with in their head. So they panic. They're like you're Wyatt. Like they just throw out a name of one of the brown guys, so and then it will land. Don't you think?
I just Danny's episode he goes up and says, "Awesome, love your stuff." I just said, "Fuck you." I know I do. I go, "Fuck you," and I walk away. And I'm like, so
I did that one.
I'm glad you know the difference between us, but what is your question for me now?
I don't want to go back.
No, you shouldn't. That would be a huge fucking mistake.
I don't want this. I don't want this.
Now, you're a San Francisco comic. Were you not today here this last time? Oh, you're not.
Day. I mean, right this first day.
Oh, okay.
But yeah.
Another fucking mistake.
My question.
Go ahead.
Wait.
I don't want
Okay. Anyways, so I have this long standing.
You get shit on a lot.
I enjoy the show so much. I such a high. I pump myself in such a high regard. You held yourself in high regard. So you said, even now, everything that's I want to make fun of them. I did. Okay.
You know you're on stage with the guitar, right?
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
This is my favorite thing, by the way. You totally did. Even gave the new band leader about like 8 or 9 weeks ago. And I just watched it.
Where's the band? There's no band. Why do you have a piece of guy with a guitar?
I told him he could do whatever he wanted. He could have any of his bandmates with him, and then he just soaks it all in for himself.
You can't call yourself a band leader. You're just sitting there with a guitar.
You're right. You're right. I won't even.
עשה את זה לצד שני, לא יהיה בכל פוטו, צריכים לעשות מייסר, צריכים להמשיך, אי אפשר סתם לזרוק סטייק כפור על המנגה וללכת ולהתחייב, או ברוב חייב נע במקום, למה הוא משווה את זה שם? מייסר כל לשם, לא בשבישה, חייבים להפוך את זה פעם אחת, אז גם כשאתה עושה בצל, אבל שם זה פעם אחת.
Oh, no, but no, that's exactly what I was getting at. This over the last 8 or 9 weeks, I've watched it. I've been watching it slowly drain of every ounce of confidence.
Super experienced comedian.
Right, just so once you guys to like him so much, and every other guest that I've had on for the last 8 weeks, they just lay into him.
You seem like a nice guy.
What's your question for us?
Now, so this is a very ignorant perspective, but I feel like all the money in charities just goes to lining the people from charities' pockets.
That's true.
Do you think charities are bullshit?
A lot of them are. A lot of them are. A lot of people are lining their pockets, but they're also lining themselves to basically self-worth. All they watch all these. Look, charities do amazing things. I can't shit on charities. But I think I know that Wycliffe Jean or whatever the fuck his name is. If you look into that charity, look into a lot of celebrities with charities that take all the money and use it on private planes. Yeah, a lot of people are fucking shit. And so Michael Vick's charity, I know nothing about, but
I'm sure Pat's asking this question because his new career is having a charity or the career that he was going to have before.
Why these questions? Why the recycling of charity? I'm gonna send it to the spot.
place where it's like making everything.
Everything is
Under perspective is just like charity. Recycling anything that, like people say, like, oh, what they want to say the planet, kill yourself.
Henry Phillips already exists. He can't be a fucking depressed guitar comic. You are a guitar comic. You're a musician. You're a musician. Sound like a guitar comic. But
a musician.
Okay.
You're a guitar comic. The comedian uses the guitar because the jokes are real, because I write songs all my life. I'm a musician, dude. Listen, like, well, because doing you. Wait a second, it's doing everybody. For those of you paying attention, there was a dude fired up. It's like Eric Leslie was doing. It's like,
I was half paying attention to that. I just heard a shitload of the Sonic fucking callbacks. And,
experience comics and all that shit. I'll be playing guitar music. That's what I do. I write songs. We know I'm a songwriter here. And I don't know how. You dude it tonight. Just know that before we move on right now, which is about to happen right now, just know you dude it here tonight.
I'm just trying to get in shape for whatever comics come up. So that's all I'm doing. No offense. You seem like you're very talented. And you're very nice.
I'm just not showing any of it right now tonight. As a musician,
I think with other band leaders, other band leaders, you just gotta laugh.
He's serious. I've never seen him like this. Yeah, no, fake.
Yeah, just do that. I think that's all we fucking want.
That's all we want. That's all we need.
And then somebody else to ask for it.
That's why he's my band leader.
Slapping it like,
Nice. There it is. That's it. And he can play a chord.
that's all you gotta do.
I feel like we could destroy Pat Reagan all night, but we got the comedian. Instead, let's do that. Over 30 comedians signed up for the opportunity to do 60 seconds of stage time here tonight. This bucket is filled with pieces of paper. Young, old, just starting, anything. It's always crazy. Comedians, you know your 60 seconds, except when you hear that sound of the comedian. Well, that means wrap it up then, or else you're going to bring out the angry West Hollywood there. There you go. Wow, there you go. They wonder why the speaker system's broken everywhere. It's because of 3 seconds of bear roar. Anyway, we're going to have a lot of fun. Let's get this thing started. Are you guys ready? It's Kill Tony 100. Yeah, 11 or something like that. Something insanely ridiculous. Here we go, everybody. Your first comedian tonight goes by the name of Cameron Drexler. Here we go.
How's your Father's Day, everybody?
I think it's done 6 years.
It's just gonna tell them. My dad wasn't around, but my mom's single, pretty hot babies. There's no like online dating back then. And she ended up marrying a Jehovah's Witness. It's like, I know it's hard to find a man, but did you have to marry the first guy that knocked on your door? Let's wait for a salesman. Let's get some Encyclopedia Britannicas or something. I was just grateful to have a dad. I don't care if it's as soon as he came in, I was like, Dad! He's like, damn. Dad was cool. He was one of those guys that used to tan with his shirt on, you know, but then he would wear not button-ups, button-downs, so you could see his red neck. So,
Here we go. There you go. That was his time.
thank you.
Oh, man.
You certainly got all the beats down. What made you want to become a stand-up comic?
It's just an exercise.
Exercise. Exactly. That's what I thought. No, it's not.
No, I like comedy.
Oh, yeah, whatever. How do you have the first relation? Jesse, this is the worst part about stand-up comedy in LA, as far as I'm concerned. People who can't do that well decide that this is something that they can do for a career. And notice that if they fucking start doing stand-up, then it fucking kills them. And so, I appreciate that you have the fucking beats and the tempo down, but this is the fucking one of the worst parts about LA and stand-up. Is having to watch guys like you fucking with their boots and their nice jeans fucking come up and do what people have decided that their life's calling is not. I have it in my act. It's a line in my act. Just reading what my life's calling is somebody else's fucking last resort. And that's not the case. So I appreciate that you got the fucking beats down, but fucking beat it.
Unbelievable. Perhaps one of my favorite feedbacks ever on this show. Hundreds of episodes.
Happy Father's Day.
Cameron,
I liked it. I think you have a future. I think you're very good looking, which helps, and you're white and good looking. So life is going to be fine for you. You don't need to do this. You're going to be fucking fine. It doesn't matter what you do. You're going to come out on top.
He's just trying to balance me out.
No, I'm just saying, like, this guy doesn't.
Oh, you're gonna be fine.
To do comedy,
You don't need to do
you're a handsome white man.
and they can act. You're
Are you straight?
Quit taking ugly comic stage time if I want it.
I just haven't met the right man yet, you know?
See, you said I'm acting.
Yeah,
You're an actor.
you could be good at that.
Just
Yeah, okay. You play a great Dexter if I want to be like Dexter that just kills himself each episode. I watch that.
He's a good actor. You act just acting like a stand-up
Living the dream, dog. Every day's a holiday, every meal's a feast. Thankfully, how are things in your neck of the woods?
I don't know why I said it. I don't know why you fucking do it.
It's what? It's gonna rain?
Cameron.
All right, well, just stay inside. You'll be fine.
How long have you been trying stand up?
Too long to admit to this crowd.
How long?
What's
It's going to rain.
Yes, sir.
I didn't know I'm straight, so I'm following the kids and won't be alone.
All right.
I don't know how long they'll be in here.
Why don't you know how long you'll be in here?
I don't know how many days I've been in here screen share.
Oh, like almost more than 300.
Well, how many years have been in here?
Your 1 year anniversary is this summer.
Yeah, 1 year anniversary this summer.
Yes, sir.
Wow.
It's pretty amazing.
That's pretty cool.
You're not going anywhere, are you?
No,
Good, because I love having you here.
I'm not going here. I'm staying right here in this call.
That's right. One day we could have a big dedication to you because you're so amazing.
Yeah, one anniversary in this call. That's how long I've been here.
Yes, sir. Be exciting.
That's simply very fun. See, right now, my neck is like, what is it in the weather? And when my weather friends is peaceful, because got my weather coming to my area. So I'm trying to learn.
Okay. Well, just stay safe and the weather will pass. Stay dry, my man.
Yeah,
Okay, good.
They called my softball fight because it's gonna rain.
Oh, you had a game cancellation?
You get coach with the back against the weather.
Okay, well then you need to stay safe.
Yeah.
You'll be fine though.
Yeah, I have somebody get me to get me through the weather.
Yep. Well, I'm here to keep you company, big man.
Yeah.
If you need
I got
anything,
Mr. Clark in there listening.
yes, ma'am. If you need anything, let me know.
Oh, I'll be here.
I know you will, big dog.
I'm always in here.
Yes, you are, and I love it. I love it more than just about anything in the world, my friend.
Yeah, I agree.
Excellent.
I want to make myself feel right at home.
You are right at home. This is your home. This is your digital home, my friend.
Yeah, amen.
Excellent.
I'm going to have it in your way.
Same here, my friend. I love having you as a friend.
Yeah, because the socialized Discord is not fun place.
No, it's not. No, it's not. But this one is. We're always doing something fun.
Yeah, I heard you had a podcaster, Aaron.
Yeah, I did his podcast yesterday, and I'm going to do it next Sunday and the following Sunday, God willing. And I'm doing another podcast later today, so that should be fun.
I want to be in your podcast.
You want to be in the?
Because how long will it be? Because I've been here a long time.
Yes, sir. Well, they interview me, so that's basically what they do. We talk about cool stuff, then they publish it, and then we get more people finding out about what we do, which is cool.
I heard you make advice.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, they just do a lot of work for me that's like tedious and boring, and so they make things more efficient.
My camera's doing this now. My camera on my Mustangs is set no camera.
Yeah, why don't you restart that device and we'll see if we can figure it out.
I'm going to help me get my internet right.
Absolutely.
Because I'm not in the car.
Oh, you're out in the car?
It's working on this end.
Oh, which one?
There it is.
Okay, good.
Yeah, it's working. Finally got to work.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, right.
I see you now. I see you now. Hey, there you go, big dog. Yes, sir. In the flesh. The man, the myth, the legend. Brandon. That's you. Yes, sir. I see you're always screen sharing cool stuff. That's great. I love when you screen share sports. That's my favorite.
Yes, I love sports.
Yes, sir.
I'm always in his feature in NBA, soccer, golf,
everything. You're Mr. Sport. They could just call you Mr. Sport.
I'm Mr. Sports guy.
That's right.
I'm the one that screenshot all sports.
That's right, my friend.
Probably I can be I said, my girlfriend, I'm going to be a sportscaster.
Very well. You
Broadcasting for you.
that's right. You got a girlfriend?
Yeah.
No way. Good for you, Brandon.
Yeah, I got a girlfriend.
Good on you, my man. Look at you, little Romeo.
Yeah.
Excellent, my man. Well, that's great to hear.
So I'm always hanging out in this car doing talking to my girlfriend.
That's cool. Yeah, you could be a sportscaster someday. That would be neat.
Yeah, I can make sports cup doing this. Much as I screen share sport to him.
Yes, sir.
That's about all I get is screen share sports and weather.
That's cool, my man.
Cool thing you know about me, I'm a weather geek.
Oh, really? You're a weather geek? You like the weather?
Yes.
Okay, very cool. Well, very well. So you like when it rains or no?
I'll go away, but not the bad ones.
Yeah, not when it's scary.
Always, it's not the other way around. You know?
Right.
Because the bad way is full turn. I'm going to make school all the way in my eye because it's going to run because it's going to get bad.
Okay.
And so they make school all the way.
אז איפה יש את החומר? מתי הוא נהיה חומר? מתי אתה יכול לעשות את החומר? תמיד שיש לו קדושה. אין לו שום קדושה עכשיו. אתה לא יכול לעבור על חומץ כשאין לו קדושה. כמו שאתה עושה את זה בבית שלך, אתה לא עובר. אלא מאי, מתי יש לו קדושה? כשאתה שם אותו על השולחן. הנה ככה. כשהוא שם אותו על השולחן, אז הוא נהיה קדוש. אוקיי, אי אפשר להכניס אותו, כי גם די מורכב. כשאתה מסמד למיות שלו, ככה יעצור שמשתדל. לא, מאוד פשוט. מה רבי עקיבא אומר? רבי עקיבא אומר שהפסוק הזה שעכשיו אמרנו, עכשיו תקריבו, מה זה? מה באים שם? עכשיו תקריבו, כן? לרבוי, אני אומר למטה, אני אומר לרבוי, סליחה שסוף, שלפי רבי עקיבא אסור להכניס לחם החולים, לפי רבי עקיבא אסור להכניס לחם החולים. הבעיה זה שמעל הלחם החולים רבי עקיבא אומר שיבש לא מתקדש. אי אפשר לקדש, הכלי לא קדוש, שנראה עוד שני הסוגיה. הכלי של היבש, האיסורן הזה לא קדוש. אם הוא לא קדוש, איך אתה יכול להכניס לחם החולים? למשל, במנחה רגילה, כן מתקדש בתקשורת. כן, אבל כאן, הכלי שאתה, האיסורן לא קדש. בוא נגיד ככה. המנחה רגילה מתקדש בכלי שאתה שם את זה, לא הכלי שאתה מודד. ולחם החולים יש רק את הכלי שאתה מודד, אין לך את הכלי שאתה שם. עוד שנייה, הגמור תשאל, אבל יש לך כן כלי שאתה שם. להרבה. אבל במנחה רגילה, זה, את הריבוד, זה מה שמקדש את זה. זה ודאי, זה בלי שורש. אני מדבר על המודד. המודד של ה... מה? לא, עכשיו הבנו את זה, אבל לא, שנייה נראה. שימו לב, לפי רבי יוסי הגלילי, רגע, אתם רואים למעלה, רבי יוסי הגלילי? יבש מתקדש. הכלי המדידה של הניסור הוא כן מתקדש, אז יש לנו בעיה. איך אני כאילו אומר שהפסוק בא להגיד שזה מלאכניס לחם החולים, כי אפשר להכניס לחם החולים, כי נמצא בכלי לא קדוש, אי אפשר להגיד להם.
Send me a fucking chicken anymore. See you later. I can hear my breakfast. There he goes. There he goes. It is frustrating, isn't it? I don't like it. What I have no inside like you, sir. She can't fuck a chick anymore. See you later. There you go. No. It is frustrating, isn't it, Al? Like, I don't like it. I don't like the fucking actor trying to stand up. You're right. No stand-ups other way around. That's fine. Teach his own. Do whatever you want to do. Fuck off. Now I'm just hoping everybody bombs all night. So I'm gonna watch more of that. That's amazing. Your hands got it for Sean Hart. Sean Hart. Thank you so much. I tried fucking a trapezoid the other day, but I couldn't get an angle on it at the time. It was really embarrassing. I was at a geometry working through parallelograms and rhombuses and trapezoids, but no one was fucking. What a bunch of squares! Alright, what up? Embarrassing. I tried, let's see. You guys into Suicide Girls at all? They're having happy applause. Anybody like Suicide Girls? Yes! Yes, wonderful. Nothing more punk rock than worthwhile than softcore pornography. I'm endeavoring to become a pornographer myself. I'm going to start saying that Jewish and Armenian girls are punk and genocide girls. Is anyone going to subscribe to my website? No, no one will. Punk rock tattoos are hot. We're the state issue tattoos that migrants have. Yes, I just flew into town. Boy, Myers tired inside. And to strangle a baby the entire. Anyone else ever have to mercilessly just. What's the deal with airplane food? It's always crying and screaming for its mother. That's what I'm trying to say. One of the first to ever do 6 minutes in one I just don't have geometry and genocide. Yes, that's. I'm the good guy. That was brave of you. That was a brave choice to go non-funny. Right? That's brave. Let's get up here. It's not easy to, dress the way you dress. I'm wondering if it's part of the whole package. Yeah, it's really interesting. Not a lot of people purposefully dress like a school shooter. But you really pulled it off here tonight. Like, there's gotta be some guns in these pockets, right? That's the only time a boy can wrap some black hoodie around his waist. It's Monday night. I don't think anybody should be looking too slick. That's nice. That's a problem with the first guy. But now the pendulum may have swung the other direction. That's fine. I saw you sitting in the back the other guy listening to some music. It's a musician I am too. I was just listening to some stuff. Jesus, just everybody a musician. Who here wants to be a stand-up comedian? So tell me about music. How's that going? That's going pretty good. Yeah, the comedy band. What was that called? Tartar Control. That's fun. Yeah. And then, do any like you purposely not get laughs? Is that your thing? Like you're just gonna go? No, I've seen it happen. It's a device that a lot of people use, and so you're gonna. Yeah. So like it's a sort of like. Intentionally or trying to start mocking. It starts a little awkward at first. Yeah, I don't mean to mock stand up, but it starts awkward. Usually because I just didn't ask. Yeah, no, 1 minute again. I'm going to say it one more time. 1 minute, if possible. Did I tell the story last time I was here with the guy gave us 3 minutes? Yeah, so wouldn't even do 3. Don't know how you're doing this, but balls for everybody to do this. Great. So, but you just in general, that's how you typically start to set. I tend to feel nervous initially, so I feel like it's good to. Yeah, you seem like you're a funny guy in your band. Whenever you see you're a funny guy, right? You sort of look like this emaciated Mike Horowitz thing, right? And so, I just don't think you should start with geometry. No, I think that's just too much.
ויבטנו ממנו אותו דבר,
You know what? I'm gonna talk to your tempo, man. Like right now, you're talking horrible.
Of course, I try to push everything for time. It was just trying to get
I don't ever do that.
הוא עושה, יושי הבין שהוא ממש קידש את זה, גם אם לא. זה לא ממש ככה, יש כאלה שאומרים ככה, שמויש רבינו היה צריך לקדש שזה נתון לחוץ. הנקודה הזה, שבסוף יש קדושה בגבול לחוץ. למה יתמינה? הוא משפט, כאילו, מעל הגדרות של הכלי, וזה נגע בגבול לחוץ. לילה נעמי, כן? דבר פשוט, סוגיה פשוטה. לילה נעמי, רבי עקיבא, ואנחנו מתאמנים לשמוע על עמוד דבר. אנחנו אולי נגיד שרבי עקיבא רבי יונסון, עמוד דבר, הוא מה רבי יונסון? לא, אי אפשר. מישהו דרשום, הוא מתסלח לאדום. הירוק הזה, או לא, עכשיו, אחד ירוק. מה שלך מתקדש, הם לא סוברים אותו דבר, רבי עקיבא אומר שגם בפנים, גם חוץ קדוש. רבי יונסון אומר רק בפנים, אז הם לא שנים. אומר רבו ולאביי, לא יתביסו, זה מה שבן מפני אירופה, זה מסויג, כי זה הפריע לו מאוד. הרי צריכים לעובד את הלחם האחרונים. איך נראה את הלחם האחרונים? בביסו כזה, הנה, כזה כלי, בצד שמאל, כן? בצד שמאל. וזה, זה קדש. אז מה? אז מה? אז אפשר להכניס אותו, אבל אפשר להכניס אותו, תוך כדי, שאתה עושה את זה, למה אתה אומר שאין שום אפשרות שיכניס אותו, אם לא מגיע לפגישות? לא, להכניס את הפגישות. לא פגישות שיבש, זה שאתה רוצה להגיד לי,
75% of your sets are great sets.
Great sets, 75%. I'd say that's a high ratio for anybody. If you want 75% great, how much is great? 95?
Is anybody, what's your definition of great? Yeah.
Everybody has a really good time.
Has anyone seen him out doing spots? No, I do regularly. Because when you start ties. Yeah, that's it. They're crazy, this guy's rap. Autobot, they scream. There's robot, they scream.
Do I scare the musician rivalry over here?
Wow.
Rolling up under the
Would you consider what you do singing?
Yes,
You sing, but Pat makes you scream.
my buddy screams.
So when you prefer that went well, like you can turn control the ball to you care about more, try to control your stand-up.
I feel like we're all the same thing. Sure, it's harder. I do a lot of different kind of performances, but the one that's always sucked, as you may have seen, is stand-up, which is why I've worked on it for so long. With Valentine, like 13 years now.
But see, what happens is a lot of us is seeing that everybody else can take this note is distracted by so many things. You can never be good at stand-up. And so we don't focus on it. That's never good approach.
All right. Sean Hart. He's on Twitter at Sean Anthony Hart. Hammered Rexless Rex AFS. There you go. A guy who's been doing stand-up 13 years. The guy before him has been doing it 7 years. That's what I love about this show is somebody that's been doing it for 2 weeks is able to come up here and murder right now. It happens every fucking week. And I just feel bad for the guy.
But they've been doing so much other shit. They're so distracted that they haven't really been doing it. Somebody who's been doing it for a year and a half doesn't understand it. Those guys combined.
There you go.
What seemed like who's next?
Somebody wrote their name down on with green ink. That's always a little bit foreshadowing. Always something interesting. People don't use normal pen. That's one of the things I learned from this side of piece of paper. That's crayon. Yeah, it's basically fucking crayon. This is a first. We're gonna give it for Tom Howard, everyone. Oh, he knew it was him. He knew he has the green crayon. Tom Howard, everyone. So, trying to decide whether or not I like my friends. I was walking down the street with a buddy of mine, and this very attractive girl walks by us. And not even 5 feet when she walks past, he lifts me in the arm and goes, I'm a real down. And he keeps walking. Now, 2 things. One, it's completely disrespectful. And the other, why would you want to ruin a pussy?
Why would that be your goal in life? Like, it brings joy and happiness to millions of men. Why would you do that?
אבל השיא של
You know what happens to a pussy when you ruin it? It becomes a vagina. And nobody wants a vagina. That's where you're like popping out kids and disappointing husbands after 12 years of marriage. So, I haven't gotten laid in a while. It's been about 1 week. Not 1 week in numerical value since the song 1 week left bare Nick Lee came out. I really like the 1 week joke. Didn't get a laugh from anyone, but I would have laughed. That was the vagina joke is good. Also, I saw what you're getting at. There's not like a word that you can use that sounds more sicker or textbook style. Yeah, I was going to say, go find a different word. Now, vagina is... Well, no, I don't know if I know this, Tom. I know it's been a while, but let me tell you, the clitoris isn't actually a word for vagina, it's hard. That's the pussy motor. Different area completely, Tom. There's a reason why I'm not saying. It's going to be the first time where a comedian learns about the birds and the bees and there's...
Can we back up and talk about what are you a musician?
No.
Are you an actor, commercial actor? All right, there's your good one. Big round punches in a Canadian later, John. He looks like a stand-up. He dresses like a stand-up. He acts like a stand-up. He has material like a stand-up. This is an actual stand-up.
סדיר לעבוד לצלול, ושם אצל סמית. מה זה רבי? הוא תמיד עכשיו אומר שצריך סמית, אם צריך סמית לא גם צופר. אבל אנשים למה יקרנר, אנשים עכשיו אמרנו, הורדנו את כל הסמית. אז מה בעצם לחשוב שהנשיא צריך להיות בצופר? אם הנשיא מקבל סמית פה, אז אולי, אני מבין למה אתה חושב שנשיא גם צריך צופר. אבל לפי רבי שמעון אין סמית, אז מה בעצם לחשוב סמית.
And raising still think you should play it.
Well, it's very interesting with that first joke. Dave Chappelle does a very similar joke. He said, "Beat that pussy up," and you should watch that and see what he does with it. Pretty fucking amazing. Yeah, it's Dave Chappelle. But like that just sort of show you where you can take that premise, do you think? Like, because watch what he did with it. And,
Also, Joe Rogan had fun using a dick instead of taking a penis. Like, right. Same kind of thing.
yeah, and you're going to find that most stuff has been done. But did your friend really say that, or you write that? Yeah, that's what it's like.
Oh, she. Oh, wow. We're on the West Coast.
That's great. So I would go with very specific stuff about the fraternity and stuff like that. I'm saying that really right in a place that no one else can, and that's very specific to you. And start there, and then everything will.
But when you write, Tom, don't write with the green crayon. Do you think one of the reasons why you don't get laid is because when you're signing a check on a date, you put a green crayon? You have to deal with it. What's the story with the green?
No, it's best in this case.
What is the vagina? And obviously, you have no idea how to fix a woman.
When this is happening, if any other comics come up here and don't try to make jokes at this stage, just answer the fucking questions, and everything will be fine. So, just answer the questions. So, you've been doing it for how long?
October. Since October.
I mean, big round bus. I think, and again, I don't care if I've been better than the other two. Fine. Just because this is it now. You're out here. Where do you are you trying to do?
Money shot. Money shot.
Yeah, I'm trying to get out every night.
And how many spots are you doing like a week?
עשינו עכשיו, אמרנו שאוי סיפרנו בעד את הסינאפשון, זה לא פעם אנחנו מה זה כאילו?
Like trying to do 2
טוב, עוד פעם, כל הערוץ הזה, עשינו מה, אנחנו עושים מילה אחת, אוי זה. אז הנה, יש לנו דבר מאוד מעניין. אוי זה טוב.
That really is.
החובה צריך להיות בצפון, יש שקט על הצפון, אני חושב שהיה לנו את זה בצפון. הנה, מה? אתה? כן, הנה, להזכיר לכם, אבל זה קצת שונה היום.
What do you do with them?
Just get it better than what? It's just like you never have to use the word vagina in your mouth. Like you've got all this written to it.
Especially since you know a lot more about boys than you do vaginas.
Right. Exactly.
I think that was productive.
Yeah.
Do you have any questions for us?
Do you guys, how do you feel about the Hudson Daily Show?
Stand up.
It's fun.
Oh man, I got the wrong.
Oh, that's just
They do have a problem here. Delivery of every door about making waiting for
That's so close, right? Thank you.
everybody. See, people can do good, and they're new. We had a girl on last week, but it only done it 7 times. Ever. She fucking murdered 10 without rushing. It can happen. Maybe this was looks like a unique experience. Go for Kayla Crawford. Kayla Crawford, everybody. Oh, Kayla Crawford. You know what that means? Oh, she just got blacklisted. There it is.
good job done.
The end of show business for you. Your hands go for William Larkin.
Have you seen William Larkin before?
Oh, from the middle of the audience, William Larkin.
Can I stop you before you start? I love this. No, this is what I'm fucking talking about. What else is he gonna do? Like, it's the same. No, it's the same way I feel about myself. I love it. I love him already. I don't care what the fuck comes out.
He's because he's wearing the same shirt as you.
That's a little bit of it. But all right, it's no, don't say that. Just fucking all right. Here we go.
Let's give it up for William Larkin.
I just got a dog. I'm wondering, is this really worth it? Is this a religious thing? He's a boy dog, and my friend said a girl, you want to get your belly rub, it's good. Be a little bit more careful with the boy dog. I haven't given him one yet, but we will see. And write the jokes on my hand, because that would be professional. Anyways, whenever we have a dog, he chooses who he loves more, the mom or the dad, right? But we don't know who he loves more, because he cuddles with my wife more than so I don't know. I just want to call it something more here. I don't know. Yes.
Fuck yeah, William Larkin.
Yeah. What did I say?
Al Madrigal. Really? What that set? You stole that set from him. I love how you're amazing. Dead on prediction.
I love how I was like, you know what? I was too nice. I was on the show.
And all of a sudden, 100 episodes in, you're the first comedian ever to just give the complete nod of approval before a word comes out of his mouth. Because look at this, stinks. And you're right.
But you look like the, I mean, did everybody see the coolest dog? Isn't that funny?
Doesn't he look like he molests dogs?
Yeah.
It's perfect. It's the perfect act for you. No advice from a guy doing it perfectly. William, where are you from? Yeah. Almost a year. Perfect. This is who we like. Creepy guys.
What else? You do acting or music or anything?
Yeah. Take some acting classes. Yeah, I can't say that.
You might. I'm not saying no. I want to see it. That's the thing. I think you're onto something there because I would suggest as an actor myself, I feel like it would help. I think your material is funny. I think you could push the actors to okay. Like you could make eye contact.
Oh, I love him just as weird as
I know. You'll still be weird.
שלא מחבר אחר, הוא מחבר, אבל לא אנשים, על האנשים שגיבו שקודשים. תכלס, מכולם שגיבו שקודשים. אז כבר הגעת שאושים מקודשי קודשים, ולכן הוא צריך צופן, מטעם שקודשי קודשים הם בצופן ובפסח לא. במילא, אני ממש את זה מרודות מילה. אז עכשיו נשאל בשאלה, מה אני עושה עם המילה פיזית? לא, כי זה כבר אמרו לי מספור. או זה לחסוך, או אם נשאל בזה. נלמד את הלוחה הזה,
the craziest part about your set, you have a wife?
That was the most impressive part.
Wow, is she here?
You said she's not.
I didn't know that they allow giant 12-year-olds to get married. How old are you?
I shaved last night, okay?
Because I heard that if you have a beard, it makes you look
but like, no, I started.
Oh, where? At Dan Burst did.
אמרנו במשנה שלא רק מי שאוכל חומר חייב, וגם מי שעושה לישה לבצרת ועורך את זה, עושה את זה יפה, וגם מה זה קישור?
Giant baby. What's his pacifier? Relax. Let him let this fucking baby loose. How are you? That wasn't weird. Sure, we believe you shaved your beard. Whatever. You're a 10-year-old. You got a beard. You're 28. You grow it up. I'm the perfect thing about him. Like, it's just, this is the guy you see around here more often. Like, he's a stand time. Ladies and gentlemen, a little weird. There's nothing else he can do. He's not trying to do it for any other reason. You have another job? What do you do? Video store. I didn't work at a video store. Thank you. You work at a lab? Wow. Pathology. Super boring. So boring. I love myself because I need money. What do you do? I'm a PA, so I that's nice stuff. Yes. It gets better and fucking better for this guy. I'm telling you, Pat, do you see what I'm talking about? This isn't making any sense to anybody else here. Like, this is not, he's not handsome. He's not well put together. He's goofy as all shit. He works in a fucking lab. Yeah, exactly. I'm telling you, I would, if you have an agent or a manager, well, you do know. You will in no time. Good luck to you. Keep doing. How many sponsors do you have? Not many, to be honest. When I first started, I did a lot, and they put the change on. We have a little clip of William Larkin's stand-up special. There it is. William Larkin's. How did you get that? That's not just like, yeah. How long have you been married for? Less than a year. Where's the ring? Oh, material everywhere. Here we go. What are you wearing? I'm not getting any side action, no chicks. No.
כבר מנותק, ואני זה אור, ואני אחתוך יותר.
What does she
לא
do?
מנותק.
She's the school teacher that started fucking
עוד
up
אור,
in people.
אבל יש, לא ואתה מקבל 2 על האפייה,
That way, I'm still convinced. What does your wife do?
She's a CNA.
אנחנו נכנסים לסוגיה הזאת, כל דבר פה, ככל שאנחנו יודעים.
Yes, look at you two, just a couple fucking heroes, huh? She looked like a big baby too. You guys go to sleep together, put each other in the crib, and
מה שקרה זה שהחור...
I can say your wife has a food face.
No,
I didn't shove you in the face.
What'd you say? You said she's so beautiful. She's the most beautiful woman I've ever seen.
I love you, buddy.
is she watching us tonight right now? Is she on my list?
So I don't have Periscope, man.
Are you from LA? Where are you from? Oh yeah, yes. How long you been here? A year?
No, I just
זה לא חושב לבד, מה זה?
yeah, my wife's going to go see Ed Sheeran, and I was like,
לקרות זה לחוק.
story that's
מה
really
לקרות זה
coming
לחוק?
so
מה
I
זה לחוק?
Yeah, there you go. Another night in the life of William Larkin, everybody.
that's another reason why you like him. William Larkin, ladies and gentlemen, let him hear it.
Fully endorsed. Came to LA. They said it couldn't be done. His wife's at a fucking concert and he came here. That's right. William Larkin. I don't think he's married. I don't think he's 23.
Everything was on.
I'll allow it. I won't question it. Sure, I shaved my beard yesterday. All right.
אז זה
Get some cubes yet. I've seen this guy before. We know we love him. One of our favorites here. It's got a tan fam, everybody.
מה עושים? שיטה אחת זה מתאים אדם ובוקר שאין לו אימון. אתה תציל את החיים שלה. אז מה?
Hypothetically speaking, if I were to hang myself, I would
אמון. ואם הפיזם את אדם ובוקר שאין לו אימון, אם זה יעשה במון. ואנחנו רואים מיד, אף לא משהו באימון, אפשר לעשות את הדבר. ובזמן שלאיש לו, אני לא רואה, אתה עושה מון, אבל אתה לא מקבל מפסול. אתה לא יכול עכשיו להגיד, הנה יש לה מון, טוב, אני יכול לשחוט אותה, אני לא יכול להביא לכל. אבל מה כן? אז מה שמסביר כאן, היא כיוון שהיא צריכה את הגדם, אז היא בעצם באה לתמום. אבל זה מון, זה מחלה. אז אם זה מון, אני יכול להכניס דם, כי אין מום על מום. היא כבר באה לתמום, מה הוספתי לה? אי אפשר להוסיף מום על גבי מום, כמה מקום כזה.
Sam Fam does it again. Look at him catching his breath after another new 60 seconds of pure fucking assassination.
Wearing an adult shirt.
Yeah, every time, let me update you. Every time he's been on the show, 5, 6 times, I feel like he's crushed. And he always wears a shirt that says @TamFamComedy on it. He has his Twitter handle on his shirt. Saw him for the first time not wearing that shirt today. I could totally do with the crowd seeing him and doing that. So everybody went sort of crazy because everybody's been telling him to stop wearing those fucking shirts.
All right, I understand at a certain point you have to become like a marketing person and you stand up happening, fucking Twitter and all that shit, but don't let it scratch what the real mission at hand is. That's doing as many spots as you possibly fucking can, and all this other shit, and your Twitter handle, I can put it on my phone, I fucking hate it, and I know I'm talking about Periscope on YouTube.com. But it's fine for some people. Stand-up comic just do that right material. You do a very good job. I think all that shit is some bullshit. It's just fucking 2 cents and shut the fuck up about it.
But having said, I thought it was funny.
Yeah, no, it's very funny. That's why that's I'm sure that you would Twitter handle makes you seem like just some
He's not wearing the shirt. He's still getting roasted. He finally changes this.
no, but you get that why you can't you gotta burn all those fucking shirts like you can't
But you also have to find a shirt that fits you. So
Right.
You don't have to wear that shirt, but just wear just the child shirt. Just the Tam Fam shirt underneath that shirt.
Wait, really? Is it? Is it? It's a Tam Fam. You gotta be fucking kidding me. I'm not there. Great. I like it. I wasn't like that. Tam, how long have you lost the shirt? When did you lose the shirt? Just for tonight, or?
Once it started again.
Wait, that was a t-shirt. Now you're wearing more clothes.
Right.
Yeah.
You're wearing two layers. Started swaying, so I lost the t-shirt and put on this winter coat. Yeah.
Was it a sweater?
Tam, when you make it to the Ice House Friday, I'd like to determine this one. Wow. Fuck yeah. Somebody just turned the Ice House into a rice.
אז גם בניסוי אנחנו בסוף שוקה שעושים הומור, שמישהו עושה כתב שם, בטופס זה עוד לא, טופס זה יותר, כן, זה מסוג את זה, ולא סוג שזה ממש חתוך לגמרי, וכל זה עוד סוג של לחתוך, כן? אבל הנקודה זה שכל אחד ואחד, זה עשה את העבודה, הבינה מסוגסת, היא שרות. אז מה אתה עכשיו עושה? מה אתה תחתוך עוד יותר? זה כבר נגמר הסיפור שם. כן, בדיוק. אז אבל בגלל חייבים על הוספת
As if you know what I'm saying. Cessation is fuck everybody. That's a lot smarter than you just gave it credit for. You should have laughed harder at that. Now I'm judging you. Tam, you got that shirt. Obviously, it's not your size. It was left in your parents' dry cleaners, and you just grabbed it. When did you stop? Okay, so it's been in the past couple weeks. Have you noticed a difference between the level of laughs that you're getting not wearing the shirt compared to wearing the shirt? Have you noticed any change at all? Have you been paying attention?
How about the Twitter followers if they come from your Brenda saying it doesn't matter, does it? And you should just fucking, so again, some people are going to take you more seriously. Again, maybe in a better shirt, not in this shirt that doesn't have a Twitter handle on it. Just keep saying how many kids. So what, any questions for us?
No, Tam, get the fuck out of here. Wow, Tam Fam went for it.
You know, first thing is like, fuck you, Tam. Being a brown person, I didn't. Can I just say, being a brown person, I didn't want to lean into the whole like sort of Asian stereotype thing, and then he asked me that fucking question. And now I'm like, the Asian guy asked me about the last Airbender. Like, that's unbelievable. What do you want to know about it?
I can't believe you went for it.
Even though they wrecked the car, according to your Sequoia,
Really threw you under the tongue of the train with that one. You fuckers. All right. Tam Fam comedy. Everybody's seen at the Ice House on Friday. Everybody's fine. Ryan goes for the next spot. This looks like another new name. Steve Bennett, everybody. Here we go.
She was lined up. She was ready to go. Hey.
So I went on this blind date the other night and everything was going really great.
אבל אני לא מבין, אם הוא נולד אמור, אז אין לו קדושה, אין לו קדושת הגוף, אולי קדושת דופן, הוא לא קדושת בגוף. אבל הוא מתעורדים בלעלמה, הוא כמו תקן. הנה, זה שעושה את זה בשביל התקן. יש לי בגוף, יש עוד כל מיני...
Yeah,
And I think I had a little bit too much to drink, so he offered to drive me home. And then I realized really quickly that he was actually blind. So, what else? Do we know why men get into relationships these days? Because the houses don't clean themselves. And sandwiches don't prepare themselves either. Hashtag feminism. Yeah, that's all I got. It's all right.
You're the good cop. Sorry, I know I'm the good cop.
You've been stopped at 42 seconds. Another person in history. I love this. I absolutely love this. I'm like, wow, this is going to be like, a real, very extremely structured episode of Kill Tony with the two Daily Show correspondents on it. And instead, I know, broken it down, and I fucking love it. I couldn't be any happier about it. Christine, give me a word to do, and I'm going to stand strong with my panel here and continue the stoppage. But I will do this. What would you have done if you had 20 more seconds? What would you have done?
Just talk us through it.
Well, okay, let me back up.
You only had 20 seconds left, so what were you going to close with before I was right back?
No, everybody says that. I know everybody says that, but I really wasn't expecting it.
How did you match that sound effect with that moment? It's incredible. It's like we literally heard her brain just explode inside of her skull. That was incredible. Holy fucking shit. Christine, oh god. How long have you been doing stand-up?
3 months.
Really? How many times have you gone on stage? 4. Something you've always wanted to do?
No. I came here to be an actor. And Yeah. Fuck yeah. So you came here to be an actor. What happened? How long have you been in LA? 3 months.
Did you act anywhere else?
Well, I've been taking classes in Austin for 5 years. I was in like a few things, and then apparently I had really great hands, so I became a hand model. And then I realized my career was going nowhere, so it was time to make a move. So, and then I'm off.
No, it's okay. You have to do that. But I just don't see why you actors don't just fucking act.
Well, because let me explain something to you. It's hard. I can barely get an
I can understand why an actor might get up on stage and explore being stand-up in some ways, tell jokes, and try to figure out how to, I mean, you act, right?
I enjoy it.
I just think that it wasn't funny.
No, but it
wasn't. I mean, I think that it's just a case of...
he's being polite. It was horribly unfunny. It was some of the worst stand-up I've ever seen in my entire life. But
The good news is,
yes, there is a positive side of all this. Is that you came out here to get distracted from the mission at hand. You should be an actress. You want to be an actress. You spent 9 years working in Austin, being a fucking actress. You came out here to do it on a professional level, and there's no way you should be deterred by that. And for you to sidestep and jump into what you think people want you to do, or some way to get noticed, is not the way to do it. You should just work your ass off. And that's it.
I have a better job for you, actually, than even acting.
אז אתה יכול לקחת 10 כאלה ולהפריש על 100 גבולים, כי זה אותו דבר, או לא. אנחנו מסוגלים על שיש היום, אז זה בעצם הסוגיה שהיה לנו אתמול, ואנחנו ממשיכים בדבר הזה, אז היה לנו בשר שמצטמק, ובשר, שנהיה יותר גדול, הוא עושה סרטון מאוד יפה יושי, לכבוד החתונה. מסעדה מאוד יפה.
Ready for this? You're ambient now. You are ambient.
סטייק סטייק, אחד קטן, אחד גדול.
What the fuck just happened in this film?
Because you just tried to, you gave a very heartfelt
Heartfelt.
Are you ticklish?
Okay, fine. You just had to do it, didn't you? Like, I get the feeling that this extra 20 seconds that you would have had to have done, I feel like maybe you would have turned everything around. Are you sure you don't remember?
Do you really think that?
No, but I just want to see it really works. It's like watching a GIF of a train wreck right now.
You've only been on stage 4 times. I mean, so even if you want to really try to do comedy, you have to make sure you have to. Because I that first joke, I didn't understand what the point was. Did you do the first joke again?
No.
Just say it.
The good news is that when you're acting from now on, you'll always be able to reference this moment when you're trying to cry. It's always, and if you ever forget, just watch the video of this. That's going to be out to hundreds of thousands of people.
Fantastic.
But you don't seem very nervous. You seem like you're
Not really nervous, just disappointed.
Alright.
Drink scratch.
You couldn't expect to do well, considering these circumstances. This is your
עכשיו הוא חצי שיעור, אז הוא לא מתאמן, לא כלום.
Fourth time on stage almost did better than the guy that's been doing it 13 years.
It's true. I mean,
Look at these moves, by the way. You guys can fucking stop with that shit. You want to go, go down to the Laugh Factory. Go watch some good old fucking classic comedy. Pieces of shit. How the fuck did you guys get in here? No more Owen. You're either laugh or you don't.
and if you're a fucking commercial actor trying to get noticed, walk out of this room now. Want any more fucking of you fuckers up here?
I feel so bad for the people that are commercial actors and still have their names in the bio.
I mean, look, if you really want to be a comic and you don't want to do that, you can do it. You just have to work at it. You have to write jokes. You have to really listen to yourself record every second you do. Listen back at it and be sober and go.
I don't know. I just feel like my taste is a little okay. Most of the jokes I have are a little too dirty.
This
Hey, Mom, what was his name? Yeah, he's doing 10 cents a week. That's sort of what you need to do. Yeah. So it's either start doing that or, dabble and
Or come